across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
There you are. Good afternoon and welcome to Drive Time right here on Talk. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan and I'll be your host for 3 powerhouse hours of news, views and topical debate all the way to 7 o'clock. Get on the show, get on the phone and call me on 03444991000 or, you know the drill, you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number and I promise to play your message out. It is Friday, August the 28th. Here's what's coming up. What kind of a sick country has Britain become? For a depraved decade, the authorities threw thousands of vulnerable young girls to the lions, stood by and let them be drugged, tortured and raped by the so-called grooming gangs, who were made up mainly of Muslim men of Pakistani origin. Coppers, social workers, teachers, politicians all said nothing and let this horror continue because to speak up may have exposed them to accusations of racism and Islamophobia. Shame on every last one of them. Now we learn that the poor victims of Britain's worst ever sex scandal, there is estimated to be about 250,000 of them, 250,000 vulnerable young girls who were raped. Now we learn that those poor victims are receiving letters and emails letting them know that the monsters who raped them are being released early from jail. I'll talk to one brave rape gang survivor to find out how she feels about this latest betrayal. The man who destroyed her life out on the streets after serving just half of his 15-year sentence. What's that about? 03444991000. In other news, Kemi Badenoch comes over all Restore Britain and declares she'll deport all illegal migrants. This is our country, she storms, not a hotel. Well, yeah, Kemi, but if it wasn't for the Tories, we wouldn't have a migrant crisis, would we? You're the ones who let all those illegal foreigners in. You're the ones who didn't stop the boats and allowed the asylum seeker numbers to rocket. So you can headline hunt and vow to clean up your own mess all you like. But no one trusts the Conservatives on this. 03444991000. Also, on today's action-packed show, Andy Burnham takes a break from droning on about bus fares to announce that he takes a very dim view of cowboy builders. We all do, Andy. But aren't there rather more pressing issues for you to deal with? And by that, I don't mean the price of a Freddo chocolate bar. Your other great declaration of the day. Just thinking, but is perhaps our Prime Minister just a tad on the disastrously parochial side? Isn't this Mayor of England thing spiralling out of control? We got World War III, we got the welfare crisis, we got the small boat crisis, and he's going on about cowboy builders and chocolate bars, and of course bus fares. What is it with this guy? 03444991000. Plus, the latest from Middlesbrough as the beleaguered town erupts into explosive violence. Reform UK announced that under their government, people who can't speak English will be banned from voting. We learn that for 3 months of shame, one migrant was granted citizenship or permanent residence every single minute. Every minute. One migrant per minute granted citizenship or permanent residence. Again, what the hell is that all about? What are we doing to ourselves? What is this government allowing to happen to this country? What are these governments? The Tories are just about as bad. This Labour lot, I mean, they're hell-bent on destroying this country. What is going on, folks? 03444991000. And finally, former BBC star Amal Rajan says that if the state broadcaster doesn't ditch the licence fee, and I'm quote, it's screwed. I agree with that. I think it's probably screwed already. Let me know what you think. 03444991000. All that and so much more. So don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Friday afternoon together. And right off the bat, let's go over to my first guest. Really pleased to welcome lawyer and writer Luke Gittos. Hi, Luke.
Good afternoon. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Let's talk about our Prime Minister, shall we? Today, he's declared war on cowboy builders, written a big piece in the Daily Mail. You know, this is very upsetting for a lot of people. He's right. The cowboy builders are a scourge. But I just can't help thinking that there are more important issues for our Prime Minister to be dealing with at this stage. And then he moves on to, what he considers to be an equally important issue, the price of Freddo chocolate bars. At least he's taken a break from droning on about bus fares. But when is he going to start dealing with some serious, crucial prime ministerial issues? This Mayor of England thing is out of control. He is parochial on steroids. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, on the cowboy builders thing, I mean, the market does control quite well for this. If people know where to look, for example, the Institute of Master Builders or Checker Trade, there's lots of things out there that people can do to make sure they don't get taken advantage of. I agree that cowboy builders are a real scourge, but people can protect themselves from this sort of thing. And it's not exactly clear what Andy Burnham would do to make those protections more pronounced in law. I mean, are we going to seriously suggest that builders need to have some kind of state certificate before they go out and start offering themselves up for work? You know, it's worth saying that a lot of builders are startups. They often work independently and alone. And my real worry here would be that we just add another layer of bureaucracy to people trying to start up their own businesses. And at a time when we've got lots of young men who are not in employment, education or training, that seems to be exactly the wrong thing that we ought to be doing about this. I mean, the Prime Minister has made some good noises about our high streets. And I think generally trading standards, that organisation that can't seem to get their act in gear over the various vape shops and barber shops that seem to blight our high streets, you know, the idea that they might be made a little bit more powerful, a little bit more robust, given more powers to go in and intervene, not just against cowboy builders, but against all sorts of dodgy businesses that really do blight our towns and cities. You know, those kinds of noises that Andy Burnham is making are welcome, but it's not quite clear what he's going to do about it yet. And I agree with the cost of living stuff. I mean, I used to love Freddos. They were kind of, I had one the other day. It's kind of a really satisfying little bit of chocolate. If you don't want a whole chocolate bar, but you are in the mood for something sweet. But I agree, this is hardly a big priority, is it? We're still yet to see those big ideas from the Prime Minister that could reshape people's lives. I mean, fixing the cost of living is not going to come from these little tweaks. It's going to come with some big economic strategy. And of course, when he announced the big move on number 10 North, the big conversation was that this was taking power away from the Treasury, or an attempt to give more power to local councils at the expense of the Treasury. Now, that kind of conflict hasn't really arisen yet. We haven't seen those ideas really being pushed through and him making a stand against the Treasury, you know, pushing back against the fiscal rules, making the kinds of decisions that might, within Whitehall, make him unpopular. At the moment, it's all Freddos, chocolate bars and bus fares. The hard battles haven't really started for him yet.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I told you this earlier. I mean, basically, World War III looms. The migrant crisis gets worse by the day. The £3 trillion national debt costs us £3,500 a second just to service. We have the £350 billion welfare bill, which is crippling the economy. And Andy Burnham's talking about cowboy builders. I'm not trying to sort of denigrate the importance of trying to sort that problem out, but it just seems to me he's dealing with parochial, minor-ish issues where there are these huge crises that he, in my view, is deliberately trying to deflect us away from, because I don't think he knows what to say about them.
Yeah, it's like we've gone from a Prime Minister in Keir Starmer who had absolutely no vibes whatsoever to a Prime Minister in Andy Burnham who is just vibes. You know, he's largely seen on TikTok and Instagram standing behind DJ decks or, you know, really cringe-worthily singing songs to soldiers in the backs of tanks and things. And you think, are we ever going to get beyond this, or are we now due to last, however many years of a vibes-based prime minister. I don't know what I find more disturbing: the idea of having Keir Starmer, who had the charm of a broken toaster, in charge, or Andy Burnham, who seems more suited to a kind of indie disco on a Saturday night. Both seem pretty terrifying to me.
Yeah, interesting times fairly soon, Luke, because finally, after what will it be, 2.5, maybe 3 months as Prime Minister, he'll finally face some scrutiny. Things like Prime Minister's question times, questions from other MPs. It's extraordinary how he just has not been scrutinised at all. Let's talk about his oppo, I suppose, Kemi Badenoch. So she's saying we will deport every illegal immigrant in this country. In other words, she's come over all Rupert Lowe, restore Britain. She's saying this country is our home. It is not a hotel. Well, I quite appreciate the sentiments, but the elephant in the room of that statement is that the reason that our country has become a hotel for illegal migrants is because, Kemi, of your party. 14 years of Tory mismanagement opened our borders both to, to an avalanche, not only of illegal migrants, but of course legal migrants as well. Our migrant crisis is massive because of her party. So if she does, she won't do this. This is just headline hunting. I think it's incredibly difficult to actually expedite the deportation of every illegal migrant in the country. I think she's just headline hunting. But if she does, I wish her well with that endeavour on the off chance she ever gets to be Prime Minister. I mean, all she's really doing is clearing up her own party's mess, isn't she?
Well, the first thing to say is that it's remarkable how much the kind of Overton window has shifted in this discussion, because you mentioned it's quite restore Britain to say we should deport every illegal migrant. I mean, that would have been common sense 10 or 15 years ago. I mean, illegal migrants have to be deported because they shouldn't be here. And that's the same for any country in the world. No country just puts up with having illegal migrants in their country. The efforts are made to deport them. And, that should be a very common sense and normal part of what the state does. But because of the way the debate has shifted, even mentioning deporting someone is now seen as a kind of right-wing talking point, which just seems completely bizarre to me. But on Kemi Badenoch's position, she has shifted the conversation within the Tory party quite significantly, specifically on the question of the European Convention and our membership of the European Convention. The Tories have been promising to leave the European Court of Human Rights for decades now. I think my earliest record of them promising to leave was in the early 2000s. The problem is that no political leader has had the political courage in order to do it. Kemi is now committing her party to a straightforward position on leaving the European Convention and resituating those rights in English law, which is the first step that we would have to take in order to assert proper control over our borders and to try and get some proper control over our asylum system as well. This should not be a controversial position. The European Convention on Human Rights was drafted in the aftermath of the Second World War, when we were dealing with completely different issues related to migration and asylum. The law needs updating very radically, and we can't do that while we are a member of the European Court of Human Rights. So I welcome Kemi's push for her party in this direction to have a bit of political courage, even if that does make her a bit more like Restore Britain. I think what she now needs to do is kind of flesh out what that looks like, because you remember Robert Jenrick, when he was a Tory, published his own Bill of Rights, and there was a discussion around how leaving the convention would actually happen. But it's been Reform who have been the only party to actually spell out concretely how they would do it and what that would look like. So we need to start leaving these international conventions, not just the European Convention on Human Rights, by the way, but also things like the Refugee Convention and other pieces of international law that tie our hands in this area. And the kind of move on the right towards recognising that basic fact is really welcome. But none of the parties, apart from maybe Reform, have shown how we're going to do it. Now, if Kemi can stick behind the courage of her convictions and, make clear that she's serious about bringing reform to this area, I think she could continue the ascendancy that we've seen. It's worth recognising that her approval ratings have been on a steady climb. She's arguably the best performing or best or most improving at least
Yeah, I
party
agree with
leader
that,
in
yeah.
terms of the polls at the moment. And I think that's largely because of the interventions she's been making in this area. And the right has to be unified at some point. They can't continue with this. It has been quite unseemly, this falling out between Rupert Lowe, Nigel Farage, Restore, Reform. I don't think the public like it. I think they see it as quite amateurish. And I think if Kemi was able to, as you hinted at, Kevin, the major problem that the Tories will face is trust. And
Yeah,
the
yeah.
broken promises over immigration, the broken promises over asylum. It's going to be having to rebuild that trust with the public that Kemi is going to struggle with. But there's no reason why she can't do it. I'm not convinced that the Conservative Party, the most resilient and long-lasting party in British politics, most successful arguably in British politics, is dead yet. But let's see if she has the courage of her convictions and has the political capital or political will even to push through some of the reforms that she's talking about.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the problem with the Tories is they're not a one-man band, they're a one-woman band. You ask anybody, who else can you name in the Tory party apart from Kemi Badenoch, and everybody starts to struggle immediately. What's your take, Luke, on what's going on in Middlesbrough? Now, there's talk of gang warfare. Andy Preston was on my show yesterday. He's a former mayor of Middlesbrough. He said this is what you might call organised, disorganised crime. He said this is the most crime-ridden town in all of Britain. He said, but don't make the mistake of portraying it like the mafia, organised crime. He said it's a mess, but everyone breaks the law there. That's the problem. But these disturbances, these violent disturbances, last night they set fire to a load of fires. There are hundreds, getting near to 1,000 of cops have been drafted into the Cleveland area to try to bring peace to this. I'm just wondering if there's something a bit more to it than just, these 5 kids, little scumbags, die in this car crash because they're joyriding TikTok, and 2 fine young policemen die. And ever since then, the tension, the trouble in Middlesbrough has just escalated with a firebombing of a house. Poor lady and a young girl died. We had a house rammed yesterday. Yesterday, someone was stabbed. The visuals are shocking in themselves. And some people are starting to say, well, this is it. This is what we've been building up to. This country has so unravelled that the social construct is beginning to come apart. There is no law and order. Police do not do a good job. The government does not do a good job. And if we're not careful, we might get more and more Middlesbroughs around the country. Does it worry you, what we're seeing there?
It terrifies me. I'd mention one thing. There are some commonalities here between what's going on in Middlesbrough and what's been happening in London for a very long time. When I saw that footage of the TikTokers speeding and then later the same young men involved in that fatal crash, it really struck me that they were filming themselves and presenting it to the internet as something to be proud of, engaging in absolutely terrifying conduct that should be a source of absolute shame for anyone. It did strike me that, in London, what we've seen is the repeated use of the internet to publicise things like stabbings and murders. So quite often what we see in London is stabbings and serious violence being filmed and shown to the internet and used on TikTok and used on Instagram or circulated on Snapchat. There is this kind of horrible nihilistic undercurrent that flows through all of this. It's driven partly by social media, but it also speaks to me of a kind of youth that have this. There is something going on in our young people that's deeply nihilistic. You don't speed the wrong way down a motorway while filming yourself for TikTok if you don't have some deep, deep disregard for public morality. You don't film yourself stabbing someone on Oxford Street if you don't hold the moral community of which you're supposed to be a part in absolute contempt.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was getting. That's exactly what I was thinking. You know, what we're really talking about. By the way, I should stress this is breaking news, Luke. It's literally just broken. The house fire on Wednesday that killed a 7-year-old girl and her aunt. The police are not linking that to the crash on the A66 last weekend, which left 7 people dead. So that's important to stress. But I think what we're seeing in Middlesbrough and around the country is a generation of people, maybe generations of people, who just have no respect for the law, who seem to have no concept of decency.
I mean, I'm thinking here in the past of the church, but not necessarily. It might have been their father's workplace, the local Labour club, the local community hall, places where people of the community would come together and provide some kind of moral leadership to their young people. And if you have that kind of moral leadership from your neighbours, from the people you worship with, from the people your dad works with, you don't go out and drive the wrong way down a motorway. You don't film yourself stabbing people. And, you know, you don't bulldoze into local shops run by local business people and start shoplifting on a rampage. You know, these aren't the things that young people... You know, there's always been
used to do. They're not what they used to do, but they do now. You know, there is this fear, there is this feeling that maybe, due to the fact young people don't respect their elders, they don't respect the police, they don't respect politicians, their teachers, social workers, you know, we are on the edge of some kind of social breakdown. I mean, I'm really a bit worried about it. But listen, Luke, really good to talk to you. Thank you very much. Come and do this again for us soon. The brilliant Luke Gissos, their lawyer and writer, going through some of the big stories of the day. Let me know what you think about Middlesbrough, because I think there's more to it than some kind of gang warfare thing, some kind of explosion of violence because of what happened on the A66. That was the ignition, that was the touch paper being lit. But the disturbances we're seeing there, I think were already what they were waiting to happen. You know, all it needed was a trigger and this whole place has exploded. That town is right on the edge, and I think we might get more of it around the country. Let me know what you think. 03444 99 1000. Let's go to break. Back in a mo.
I do not care about Meghan and Harry. I do not care at all. Not a gnat's backside, do I? Not at all. If they walked in this room, I'd say, get out. I don't care about Meghan and Harry. Can I put that any more emphatically? I do not care. I love Angela Levin, but I don't care about Meghan and Harry, all right? It doesn't keep me awake at night. I don't wake up in the morning going, I wonder what Megs is up to. Never, ever does it cross my mind. I don't give a hoot about Meghan and Harry.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Now, at this point, we were going to talk to rape gang victim Fiona Goddard. The man who raped her when she was a child, a rape gang victim, Fiona is being released after 7.5 years. That's half of his 15-year sentence. His name is Mohammed Usman. This is a nightmare for Fiona, and she was going to come on right now. And I don't think she's alone. Other rape gang victims are getting the same kind of letters from victim liaison. They just drop a line. It's, oh, by the way, the guy that raped you, know that guy that stole your childhood, that defiled you when you were a kid, we gave him 15 years. Well, we're letting him out after just over 7 years. Hope that's all right with you. She's in turmoil. She's just phoned in to say that she can't come on because she got a domestic emergency, which is a shame. But to talk about this, let's go over to Talk's reporter, ace reporter, Samara Gill. Hi, Samara.
Hi, Kev. Great to be here. And yeah, I mean, you know what? This thing about Fiona, it's just horrible. But that woman who we both had the privilege of meeting and hanging out with and actually having a great night with.
Having a few drinks with, yeah.
Yeah, having a few drinks. No, but she's such a great woman.
She's a lovely girl, yeah.
It's ridiculously contagious. But you know what? She is serving a life sentence. And even just today, the fact that she was meant to come on, and I don't want to speculate, but these girls still go through hell. Even if they put up a strong front, they try to get on with their lives. You know, Fiona, she's got 6 kids. She's just trying to get on with it. But still, time and time again, this ugly grooming gangs issue rears its head and they get re-traumatized because of stupid government decisions. And the fact that she's feeling any sort of hurt or pain just absolutely upsets me to no end, because she has gone through enough and she shouldn't have to go through this. And she's been brave enough to speak out. She's spoken out on multiple occasions, but sometimes it's just too much. Sometimes the chips are just not falling in your direction. And especially the way that this country is disrespected or consecutive governments, I don't blame her in some sort of way. I just hope that she's okay and that she's getting the help that she needs.
She was just 14 years old. She was living in a Bradford children's home when this monster, Mohammed Usman, began to abuse her with his gang. 14 years old. This man stole her childhood, ruined her life, and she receives a letter from victim liaison on Monday to say that his 15-year sentence has, in effect, been reduced to 7.5 years, half of his sentence. Now, funny thing is that after 2020, they changed the rules on this because there used to be this automatic halving of sentences, and there was such an outcry about it that they said, well, you can't do this to everybody. So had Mohammed Usman have been sentenced in 2020, he would have to have served at least 67% of his sentence, which isn't enough. anyway. But because he was sentenced in 2019 before the new rules came in, they feel they have to let him out after half of his sentence. I just don't. Why do you have to let him out? Why not turn around to him and say, you know what? We sentenced you to 15 years. We've had a change of heart. We've decided you're going to do 15 years. I mean, why is he entitled to only serving half of his sentence? Surely that is within the gift of the nation. If we decide to let him out, we will. If we change our mind, surely the nation can say, sorry, Usman, you're staying in jail for 15 years. Why don't we do this for Fiona's sake? And why don't we do it for the sake of all the other rape gang victims who are going through the same trauma right now? This isn't only Fiona. Other rape gang victims, kids, women who were raped when they were children, the victims of paedophile rape, are terrified because the men who did it to them are being released early. Why are we releasing them early?
It's such a slap in the face. And honestly, I actually asked the question, why the hell didn't he get life? Honestly, why is the justice system so weak on these people in the first place that they would give them these sort of tawdry 16-year sentences, something that doesn't even add up to the crimes that they committed? I mean, just looking into what happened, you know, Fiona was repeatedly raped by over 50 men, actually. She was with alcohol, drugs. She became pregnant at the age 15. And honestly, the most shocking part of this, which goes back to my first sort of statement, is the fact that the authorities knew about this. This is the worst part. You know, ITV actually obtained footage which showed that that staff considered Fiona a high level of risk from unknown males in her children's home. So they knew that. And then they knew that they've seen within footage that there were cars collecting her from the children's home in the early hours, and they had absolutely did nothing to stop that. So it's ridiculous. And they had a recorded policy was to not report matters to the police unless there was behavioral concern or the staff actually witnessed her being dragged into a car. So if she went into that car voluntarily, it's totally fair play.
When she was at 14 years old, when she was a
Correct.
child. Oh,
They
yeah,
knew.
that's fair enough, isn't it? God's sake.
The children's home that was meant to safeguard and protect her, the social workers, etc., they knew that she was going and getting put into these cars and taken to foreign men's houses and getting gang raped, and yet they did nothing about it.
Well, this sums up exactly what the rape gang scandal was all about, as I said in my monologue. You know, Fiona and an estimated 250,000 other vulnerable young white girls were raped, drugged, tortured by these rape gangs because middle-class white teachers, social workers, coppers stood by and let it happen. They knew it was going on, but they didn't want to speak up in case they were accused of racism or Islamophobia. They felt that them avoiding accusations of racism and Islamophobia was far more important than the horrific ordeals that these poor young girls were suffering. And it's a stain on this nation's history. It really is.
It is. And people like Naveed, who are set to be released, you know, this is the guy, the brother of the man who actually ran the house. He is he ran the party house where most of her abuse took place. Yep. He was also convicted of smuggling drugs into prison through the court toilets. Yeah. So this isn't exactly someone who has been, you know, had a clean-cut record and is some sort of reformed individual. And that's, again, the worst part of it. But I'll finish on, you know, a quote from Fiona. She said that I highly doubt a piece of paper telling them not to go into an area will stop them. And that's the reality. And that's the problem. Fiona, unfortunately, is now going to have to live every day in fear, thinking that around the corner she could bump into Izzar Hussein, known as Billy Jojo, who is one of the other people that's been let out, or Naveed. And that is the issue.
And of course Usman as well,
Yes,
Usman
yes.
himself. So 3 men that she's absolutely terrified of are just about to get released. As I say, I don't get it. I don't get the problem with keeping those scumbags who killed PC Andrew Harper behind bars. Why can't we just say as a nation, do you know what, we've changed our minds? Because it's like they seem to feel, or they actually are, entitled to the generous concessions we're giving them. Why can't we turn around and say, that generous concession of letting you out early, we've changed our minds. Suck it up. You know, it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. We're letting down poor Fiona and lots of other girls like her again. We're letting them down. The rape gang victims, we let them down horribly once before. Now we're letting them down horribly once again. What has this nation become?
There was one social worker that saw what was happening to Fiona and actually tried to raise it with the police. And she was told, quote, "Stop wasting our time." So that's just lovely to hear about the authorities that were meant to protect these vulnerable girls from these rape gangs. And you're right about it. You're completely spot on about the fact that it is kind of the last sorrid and terrible chapter in this history of the rape gang scandal that has completely stained this country forever, dare I say. Now, when we have the chance to actually do something and protect these girls, we're not. And that's the problem here. So I honestly, my thoughts go out to Fiona, Ellie Reynolds, and all the others that you have put on your program and tried to shine a light on, Kev. But unfortunately, the authorities don't feel the same way that you, I, and the rest of the audience do about this.
Yeah, let me know, folks, what you think. Why are we letting these girls down again? I just want to say about Fiona that Samara and I know quite well. She's a remarkable young woman. I mean, she's a very cheery soul. But she lives through a kind of torment all the time, and now she's terrified. But she doesn't half keep her spirits up. She's an amazing woman. And we shouldn't be... We let her down once, and now we're letting her down again. And I think that is an utter disgrace. This nation should hang its head in shame. Thank you very much, Samara Gill. Thank you. Let's move on. Next up, we're going to talk about the situation in Middlesbrough, so stick around.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Now, the local MP in Middlesbrough has called the scenes of violence and the explosions of cars, the fire, the whole social fabric breaking down, has called it terrorism. Appropriately, we have here the former head of national counter-terrorism, Chris Phillips. Welcome, Chris.
Hi, good afternoon, Kevin.
Listen, let me play you what the local MP said about this. His name is, what's the name? Andy MacDonald. He's the local MP for the area. And this is what he said on Times Radio this morning.
People are saying that they're going to their shops and not feeling safe to do so and feeling trapped in their own homes. That is just unacceptable. This is terrorism. And we've got to have an appropriate response to deal with the people who are causing such mayhem in our communities and to allow people to lead their peaceful lives. That isn't happening. We need the resources. We've been under-resourced for as long as I can remember, and I've been making the plea to successive governments, and I'm making it now, that we get our numbers restored to 2010 levels at the very least. We're 200 officers down, and we must have them restored as a matter of urgency.
So I guess he's talking about a kind of lack of police officers, and he says we need an appropriate response. Well, you know, I get that, but they've shipped in hundreds, maybe nearly 1,000 officers from around the country. So when he talks about an appropriate response, we've got enough officers there now, Chris. What would be, or what should be, the appropriate response of those officers to do something about what's happening? Because Middlesbrough is almost literally exploding. It is falling apart at the seams. What should those cops do, Chris?
Well, Kevin, this is all too late. And, you know, some of us have been saying this for the last 15 years. If you take away policing, if you take policing out of our cities, out of our communities, you leave a void, you leave a vacuum, and what fills that vacuum is criminality. And I don't think the good people of this country actually realise how quickly things can go downhill.
Yeah, exactly.
Lack of policing just means that you will have criminality across the streets. Now, at the moment, all that they can do, the police there, is to arrest as many people as possible that are committing offences, obviously. But this is a sticking plaster. This is a sticking plaster that will stop things from getting worse, but will not solve the issues of lack of policing, a general fear of crime that people have across the country. And it's largely down to the fact that policing has been so stripped out over the last 10 years. We don't have a criminal justice system that works anymore.
And why do these kids, all these young people in Middlesbrough, and indeed elsewhere, why do they have so little respect for the police, little respect for authorities, so little respect for their elders? I mean, these are feckless, pretty much, some of them are just savages, you know, with no moral decency whatsoever. How did we get to this point?
Well, they are feral. It's as simple as that. And let's not forget, you know, back in 2011, was it, when we had the riots across our cities, where what you think are ordinary, normal kids, people in the street, suddenly decide to start looting all the shops. Very quickly, society breaks down. And some of us have been saying this for so many years, that you have to have a strong police force that will make mistakes, don't get me wrong, that makes lots of mistakes, that have been over-focused on certain things that they shouldn't be. But we need strong policing in our communities, and we need it very quickly to be restored. But, and there's a rider on this, you can't just put someone in uniform and call them a policeman. It takes years to train, and they're all leaving. You know, thousands, 10,000 a year are leaving, not retiring, leaving because they don't feel as though they've been supported, and they're not getting the wages that they would have expected for the type of job that they've got.
Don't get me wrong, Chris, I certainly don't want this to happen, but I'm looking at Middlesbrough. I know Middlesbrough is very crime-ridden. The former mayor of Middlesbrough, Andy Preston, told me yesterday, so you've got to remember this is the crime capital of Britain. And he said, when I say that, he said, don't get any ideas about the mafia. This is not organised crime. It's just mass crime.
Well, it's organised in a way because the people will work together for a common purpose. It's not, the sort of organised crime that as you say,
see on The Sopranos.
But they are organised. There's organisation behind them.
OK, well, what worries me is, so you look at Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough has exploded. There was a touch paper, the horrible incident on the A66, and the whole city, or the town, it's not a city, has exploded and continues to explode. What worries me, Chris, and let me know what you think, is we may be on the edge of quite a few Middlesbroughs where we've been worried about a kind of social breakdown for some time. Lack of government, lack of policing, lack of authority. Middlesbrough may be, and I don't want this to happen, it may be a sign of terrible things to come. More Middlesbrough. It
could be a touch paper. Yeah. You're right, it could easily be a touch paper because there are similar sorts of problems in many of our towns and cities across the country. People are fed up with a government that doesn't take notice of what people
they say
for the last 10 years. It's people are frustrated, and it's as a former police officer, you can see when things are starting to bubble up. Our saving grace is that we're now moving into a period where it may be raining rather than sunshine, because you only really have riots in the summer and in the sunshine. They don't come out in the rain. So that may be our saving grace. I was really concerned this summer that we would have serious disorder on our streets. It could still happen. I hope not.
Yeah, I think it might have been too hot this summer, but you're right. I mean, let's hope it doesn't happen, but I'm pretty certain there's going to be more Middlesbroughs there. I think we may be on the edge of what we've all been dreading for a long time, a kind of mass social breakdown due to a generation of dreadful governments. Chris, good to talk to you as always. Thank you very much. Chris Phillips there, former head of National Counter-Terrorism, on the escalating terrible situation in Middlesbrough. Are there more Middlesbroughs to come? I mean, what's happened there is the social order has broken down, and they've had to bring in 1,000 coppers to try and sort it out. But the social order is breaking down all over this country. As Luke Gittis was saying earlier, we've got kids filming themselves stabbing people. Oh, let's film ourselves going the wrong way down a motorway and then put it on TikTok. I mean, these kids, where do they get these ideas from? As Chris just said, Chris Phillips, they're feral. We've got millions of feral kids in this country. They have no idea about authority. They've never known authority. And they've lived in a country where the governments have been pretty pathetic. Honestly, we're in trouble, I think. Let's go to break. We're going to talk to Jake Wallace-Simons, author and columnist, afterwards, after 4 men have pleaded guilty to the Golders Green ambulance arson attack. That next. Stay tuned.
scariest moment? Not that I want to admit it, but where was it? Was it in the middle of the night when somebody was by your tent? What was it that you thought, my God, I'm in trouble here?
To be honest, it was the moment where I'd been stopped. I'm running down to the beach. I'm trying to get to the water. You're so tired, and I get down to the bottom of the dunes. Next thing you know, bang. 6 coppers stopped me and this other lad, and I'm thinking, surely not. Surely not. They never stop any of the migrants. How all of a sudden have I run down to the beach and the 6 coppers there?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go over to author and columnist Jake Wallace-Simons. Welcome, Jake.
Hi, good afternoon.
I want to talk about the 4 men who launched that attack on the Golders Green ambulances. They've all pleaded guilty to that arson attack. The judge said there is significant, or the prosecutor said there is significant evidence that this was a premeditated and targeted attack against the Jewish community. I don't think any of us find that all that surprising. Now, they will be sentenced. They haven't been sentenced yet. What I would like to see, and let's see what you think as well, I'd like to see the book being thrown at those people, because we need to draw the line. We need to say as a nation, we will not allow anti-Semitic arson attacks, terrorist attacks on our Jewish community. And as such, you 4 are getting 30 years. Something like that. Send a message. What do you think?
30 years is a lot of years, but certainly a lot more.
Do me, Jake. Why not? Give them 30 years each.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot more needs to be done, and you're right that a firm stance needs to be taken. But, Keir Starmer used to have that line that he's ripped anti-Semitism out at the roots. Do you remember that? Which was obviously untrue. But I think that we need to take a similar approach here. And there is a clue here. There's an elephant in the room. There's a clue as to where this anti-Semitism is coming from. And the clue is in the names. I mean, you've got Hamza Iqbal, Rehan Khan, Judex Ashtasi, and Saif Ali. All of them British citizens, the last one dual British-Pakistani. They're
not the IRA, are they, obviously?
No, they seem to be from our Muslim minority. They seem to be, I would guess, first-generation, second-generation immigrants to this country. This does appear on the face of it to be an imported anti-Semitism that we've brought into our country through the door of mass immigration. This is something which people have been uncomfortable about for generations almost, for decades certainly, intensely uncomfortable with it now that we're seeing the ghettoization of our communities, particularly in the north, the sort of balkanization of communities, and various insular Muslim communities hold values and worldviews that don't resemble the ones of the wider mainstream at all. And foremost of those is a hatred of the Jews in general and Israel in particular. And here, this does need to be the wake-up call that we're going to take this seriously in terms of clamping down on the effects of it, but also looking at the deeper causes as well.
For some reason, the sentencing is not expected to happen until the spring of next year. It seems to be a long time. You obviously have to have pre-sentence reports, but that does seem to be a very long time. That notwithstanding, what we don't want to see, I mean, when I said 30 years, obviously I was saying that for effect, but I'd like to see very severe sentences, because what I fear is these guys will end up with sort of 2 years, 3 years, that sort of thing. Or even if they get 5 years, they'll only serve 2.5 years. We certainly need to go above and beyond that kind of sentence. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, I think that they need to get a severe penalty. It's difficult without knowing all the details of the case to dictate to suggest what the sentence should be at this point. But certainly they need to have the book thrown at them, as you've said. But it needs to be a wake-up call that we need to look at this thing at all levels. So there needs to be a clampdown on extremism in mosques and in general. Extremists need to be dealt with the full force of the law. Resources need to be put into that cause. Legislation needs to be toughened up. Deportations need to take place. We need to get in specialists who can advise on the use of Arabic to produce extremism that we're not aware of as non-Arabic speakers. We need to clean up that Muslim community from extremists, and the people who are going to benefit from that the most will be the Muslims themselves, Muslim moderates themselves,
Yes.
who are no longer being bullied and oppressed by these people who control the mosques and the charities and the community centres and all the rest of it, and keep them under the thumb, keep them from integrating while they pursue their agenda of trying to convert Britain gradually into a Sharia state. We've got to stop that. We've got to get rid of extremism, embrace the moderates, and this is a good place to start with, really throwing the book at these people who've torched Jewish ambulances, for goodness sake, ambulances.
Yeah, which don't only... These ambulances, the Hatzola ambulances, they're for everybody.
They're charity ambulances from a
exactly.
Jewish charity, that's right. Yeah, they're not Jewish ambulances. I mean, they don't, they're not restricted for Jews or anything like that.
Yeah, they don't run on Fridays and things like that. No, that's not not the way they are. Jake, really good to have you on the show. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Jake Wallace-Simons there, author and columnist. Let me know what you think. These four... as I say, I reckon we're 10 years minimum. Send a message. You commit terrorist attacks against Jews, anti-Semitic attacks like this horrific arson attack, you get one hell of a long time in jail. Send a message. Send a message. Let's hope they don't get 2 years and 3 years. What they did is horrendous and it's racist. A racist attack on a Jewish community. Got to be stopped, right? Right, on that bombshell, much still to come. After the 5 o'clock news, I'm going to be talking to the senior fellow at the New Culture Forum, Philip Kisley. We're going to go through some of the big stories of the day. You don't want to miss it. See you over the other side of the news.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go over to my next guest. We're going to go through some of the big stories of the day with him for the next 20 minutes or so. He is Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum, one of my favourite guests, Philip Kisley. Hi, Philip.
Hey, Kev, how you doing? All right?
I'm all right. What's your take on what's going on in Middlesbrough? I fear this. Obviously, there are local elements to be taken on board. There's the A66 crash, which seems to have triggered social unrest on a really, really serious scale. Firebombing of a house, the ramming of a house, the stabbing. We saw them last night setting fire to cars everywhere. Now, Middlesbrough has got its peculiar problems, but you know, Reform UK today are saying that the fabric of our democracy is beginning to fall apart. And I think if we look at Middlesbrough, we can see what Reform are talking about. I fear Middlesbrough is going to be the first of many communities that explode like this. What we've been fearing for a long time because of appalling governments, lack of policing, lack of authority, generations of feral youths with no sense of discipline. We've been fearing that this country might fall apart at the seams. We could be on our way, I fear.
Absolutely. I think there are several towns very much like Middlesbrough which are suffering from deprivation, poverty, that seem to have been left behind, have generations of people who are unemployed, families with 2-3 generations unemployed, do not know what it's like to work. You have young lads actually with no hope of a future, but that is no excuse whatsoever for the kind of absolutely feral, disgusting criminal behaviour we've been seeing. It's all of this. You could link this right across the country. My fear is that all of this really blows up because it's powered by the narcissism of social media. You know, a lot of this joyriding, a lot of this performativity is posted on social media. The point is, Kev, there's no comeback, you know. So I think 4 of these lads had 37 convictions between them. That's just 4, right? But they're still out, they're still doing that, and it makes no difference whatsoever. The whole model of policing is wrong because the judiciary is wrong. You know, if you get them to court, they're not going to go down, and if they do go down, it's just an academy for crime, and they're out, they're back on the streets. I think the problem is the whole kind of structure of society, especially for young men, really doesn't work anymore because, as you say, we've had year after year, decade after decade of governments failing them, and the kinds of stuff that we've talked about on this show, the crime, the deep levels of crime, it's just a way of life for them. So there's a huge job here to turn these things around. But the key point is it's not Middlesbrough. It's not just Middlesbrough.
Exactly.
It's systemic, and it's a pattern throughout the country.
Yeah, I think we've got to steel ourselves. There could be trouble ahead, in the words of the song.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Well, I would say this is probably at the root of some of our social problems. It is the migrant crisis, both legal and illegal, a crisis that is changing, has changed the very nature of this country, culturally, socially, economically, in almost every single way. But you know, various governments, this one in particular, is very keen to say, oh, we're stopping the boats, our plan is working, look, asylum seekers are down, there's so fewer of them in hotels. Well, guess what we just found out today? That in the 3 months to June, 1 migrant every minute was granted either British citizenship or permanent residency. Every single minute, a migrant was granted citizenship or permanent residency of this in this country. Every 60 seconds, a migrant, yep. 1 minute late, yep. Yep. For 3 solid months to June. That's just obviously a cross-section of what's happening generally. So for 3 months, a migrant a minute was given citizenship or permanent residency, and they're telling us that they've got the migrant crisis under control. Do me a favour. Why are they doing this? Why are they giving them citizenship as if it's confetti?
Because they know with the system that's in place, with human rights lawyers, with the blob, with the government we've got, they've got no desire to change the system. You know, they still think, this Labour government still thinks migrants equals votes, and hopefully if we get a reform government in 2029, that will certainly not be the case. I mean, we know from what they tell us, it really doesn't matter anymore what they tell us, does it? You know, this 1980, it's like the war in 1984, you know, the boat numbers coming over on the boats, oh, they're increasing, they're decreasing, they're increasing, they're decreasing. It's just this kind of story that goes on and on. As we saw earlier in the week from the Talk documentary, there's a tsunami of people waiting on the Calais coast to come over. So it doesn't matter about the day-by-day numbers. But what happens with all of these migrants granted citizenship? They are changing the fabric of society. They are changing who and what we are. We are becoming something different as a country. Now, the key thing, Kev, here is nobody voted for this. Not one single person in the country voted for this. And if you look at all the research, all the polls over the last 20 years, they all tell you that the key problem here, the key thing that people are worried about is mass immigration. Now, this is nothing to do with racism. This is about the scale and speed of change. And as we are seeing in places like Middlesbrough, this is resulting in poverty and this desire just to check out of being a responsible citizen. People think, oh, well, I don't recognize this country anymore. It's not working for me. I can't work for it. There are just not enough jobs to go round. There are too many people in the country. I'm just opting out, and I'll opt for crime because it's an easy life. And people just bury their head in the sand. We've got a massive welfare bill. We're not meeting it in terms of what we are earning through income tax. So there's a massive problem on the horizon here. And it just feels as though we're on the precipice of something. And when we get these stories like, oh, well, one migrant coming in every minute and staying, I think, honestly, people do despair. And that's a really dangerous place to be.
Absolutely. Look at this, listen to the numbers. Over those 3 months, a total of 140,122 people, that's the 3 months to June, secured one of the two statuses, either citizenship or permanent residency. Meanwhile, in the year up until June, so basically for the past year, 199,628 people were granted indefinite leave to remain, so basically 200,000. And over the same period, this is a doozy, 245,520 people became British citizens. What on earth are we doing? So we let them break into our country illegally. And by the way, when we talk about the Boris wave and the problems that's causing, which of course are immense, the silly sod letting about 3 million people, you know, we don't have to let them stay. We don't have to give them residency. We don't have to give them citizenship. So here's an idea. Why don't we not do that? So we have, in the past year, given 200,000 people indefinite leave to remain, and 250,000 became British citizens. That's just grotesque.
So you're talking about the best part of 500,000 people.
Yeah.
What's that? The city the size of Manchester. What are we going to do with them, Kev? How are we going to feed them? How are we going to give them employment, housing, welfare, you name it, education? What are we going to do? How are we going to deal with that amount of people? The answer to that simple question is we can't do that. But we're going to be in the same situation this time next year and the year after and the year after and the year after. Meanwhile, Andy Burnham is talking about the price of chocolate bars, for God's sake. You know, this is the kind of ridiculous situation we're in. In other words, he's talking about the cost of living, but he isn't really dealing with the drivers of the change, the real problems, the big issues. He isn't.
He's deliberately avoiding them.
He's totally avoiding it. But the number, when people hear the kinds of numbers that you've just read out to me, I bet viewers are just hanging their heads in despair at those numbers, because it isn't just those. My point is, it's going to be the same next year.
Well, I'm just about to tell you, the Home Office, listen to this, the Home Office estimates that between 1.3 million and 2.2 million people could settle here permanently between 2026 and 2030. So for the sake of argument, 2 million more people by 2030 will be living in this already absolutely jam-packed country that can't handle another person, to be honest with you. So the Home Office is just sitting there going, we estimate there'll be 2 million more people living here by 2030. Never mind estimating it. Why don't you do something to stop this? This is outrageous.
Well, the thing is, it is a national emergency, and anybody with any sense must be looking at those numbers with dread. Here's the thing, for the rest of the stories, right, you can either have mass immigration or you can have democracy. You cannot have both of those things at once, because we cannot cope with the niceties of choice if we're looking at an extra 2 million people in 4 years. We can't. And what kinds of people are coming in? What kinds of people are we giving sanctuary? Are we giving sanctuary to people who hate the West, who hate Britain, who want to impose religious fundamentalism on us? How do we deal with that? How do we stand up to that? How do we stand up to that when we have a government who is actually looking to appease those people because it wants votes, and also it is frightened of them and it's frightened of civil unrest? It's a real mess. And I'm just looking at some of the images that are just flashing up on the screen there, and I'm thinking, my God, it's only 2017, 2018, we weren't in this situation. Now, less than a decade later, we're looking at social and cultural oblivion, for God's sake. And that's not even, I'm thinking about the triple bottom line, that's not even thinking about the economy.
I was going to blow my own trumpet for a bit. I posted a tweet earlier, but I think it sums up what I wanted to ask you. World War III looms. The migrant crisis gets worse by the day. The £3 trillion national debt costs us £3,500 a second. The £350 billion welfare bill is crippling the economy. But Andy Burnham is prioritising the scourge of cowboy builders. What kind of a parochial idiot is this guy? All of that is going on. We are being engulfed by literally existential crises. Defence, Putin's building up to invade Poland. God knows what's going to happen then. Welfare bill is destroying us. The net zero maniac is wrecking the economy, and on the list it goes. And our Prime Minister takes a rare break from droning on about bus fares to say he's very worried about cowboy builders. Cowboy builders are a scourge, but I would suggest there are more important issues.
We've got bigger fish to fly.
And when I say there are more important issues for the Prime Minister to concern himself with than cowboy builders, I don't mean the price of Freddo chocolate bars, which is his other big issue of the day. When is this parochial nonsense going to end? When is he going to stop talking about bus fares and get to grips with these major crises that are engulfing this nation and are putting us in an extremely perilous position?
I think what's going to happen is there's going to come a point where he cannot ignore it anymore, and once he has to deal with these issues, it will be blatantly obvious, not that it isn't blatantly obvious now, but it will be blatantly obvious that he simply does not have the toolkit. We are looking at, I mean, you can fold it in different kinds of ways. You can look at it in terms of society, you can look at it in terms of culture, and you can look at it in terms of the economy. There isn't a win in any of those. We are all, we're looking at oblivion on all of those three fronts. Now, we've got massive cultural issues, not just in terms of mass immigration, but as we've seen in terms of young people who've just stepped out of society and don't care anymore. But the key issue for me, I think the really pressing thing is the economy that you talked about there, because when that goes, this is what I always say, when people can't afford to feed their children, okay, when people can't afford to pay the mortgage or pay rent and they panic, okay, that is when all the other issues really, really boil up, and that's when we have trouble. It's economic. Now, the problem is we've got a tax and spend model, right? That's the worst possible model we could have for growth. There is no growth with tax and spend. It's the opposite. We desperately need to stimulate growth. We desperately need to stimulate confidence, okay? And we need taxpayers to want to stay. The problem is, the big problem on the horizon is that anybody with any money, when they see the catastrophe and the chaos that will happen, will say, oh, well, that's it for me. I'm going to leave the country. I'm going to go because I can afford to. Then that's when things start getting really, really serious. This guy needs to, pull his head out, and he really needs to look at what's happening and listen to things that people like you and me are telling him on a daily basis, Kev.
Yeah, he's the Prime Minister of Great Britain, not the Mayor of Trumpton. It's absolutely ridiculous. Let me ask you the last question. Kemi Badenoch, do you think she waits for Reform and Restore Britain to announce policies before she knows what to say next? Because she's come over all Restore Britain, saying she'll deport every single illegal immigrant. I mean, she won't. But she says this country is our home, not a hotel. Well, the reason it's become a hotel for illegal migrants, Kemi, is because of your party. She seems to think we've almost forgotten that this absolute catastrophe of the migrant crisis is the Conservatives' fault. Yes, Labour have made it worse, but we can't blame Labour for it. We blame her party. So she says she's going to deport every single illegal immigrant. But all she's doing is cleaning up her own party's mess. People keep saying, oh, she's doing a marvellous job. She's really turned the Tories around. Has she? Has she? She's a pretty good performer. Who else have they got? I mean...
that's the key thing. That's the key point. They don't have anybody else. And she can say anything she wants. Well, Chris, she can say anything she wants. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because they are not going to see power, at least for a generation, if they're ever going to see it again, the way we've been talking for the last 20 minutes. Okay. So it really doesn't matter what she says. And I was just really interested to see her saying, this is a home, not a hotel. Yes, she's echoing Reform and Restore.
Should have told that to Boris Johnson.
Clearly, actually, but the main thing is, clearly, the SDP have been saying that for years. A tiny little party like the SDP with very, very rigorous policies, they've been saying that for years. So she's miles and miles behind. It's like she's chasing trends. But ultimately, at the end of the day, and I'm really sorry to say this, it doesn't matter. We don't care, give two hoots what the Tories say, because they're never going to get anywhere near power, at least not for the next 20 years.
Yeah, I think, she's living in cloud cuckoo land. I think she really is. Philip, great to have you on the show. Have a magnificent weekend. That's the excellent Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum, Philip Kisley. Let's go to break. Back in a minute.
there's two big pull factors. One is that they speak the English language, you know, because we spent a couple of centuries going around the world colonising it and teaching everyone our language.
There's the reason that the Labour Party will forever allow people to come to this country.
They've got a network of people that speak our language, and the other is that there is a black economy.
Sam, you're not telling me a majority of migrants who come to this country can speak English, are you?
A lot of them come because they feel they can work better in the English language than they can in many of the European languages.
Explain to me then why they don't bring their wives and children.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. It's the Battle for Britain, folks. We are going over to the village that roared. That's Piddington in Oxfordshire, the tiny community, the rural community, the pretty village of Piddington. 350 people, 46 kids. They are facing the grim prospect of a massive migrant camp on their doorstep with 1,250 young male migrants, young male foreigners in their midst. It's going to change, it's going to ruin that village. It's going to change it. It's going to ruin the childhoods of the kids who live there. Tim McNally, he is the chair of Piddington Parish Council, but he's gone international with his Village That Roared campaign. He's not going to let this happen. He has gained supporters, well, me for a kick-off, but far more importantly, Elon Musk. His campaign has gone global, and he's calling it the Battle for Britain because it's not just Piddington that's facing this kind of grim prospect. We know Linton-on-Ouse up in North Yorkshire, Crowborough, of course, in East Sussex, already happening to them. There are proposals at Bareham in Norfolk. All these villages proposed massive migrant camps in their midst, part of Labour's Andy Burnham's spiteful little campaign to make middle-class people take their share of the responsibility. None of us have a responsibility to put up people who broke into our country illegally. Be us working class, be us middle class, be us upper class. None of us have a responsibility for that, but our Prime Minister seems to think so, and because he's a little class warfare warrior, he likes to punish the middle classes. Well, listen, the guy organising the Village That Roared campaign, the Battle for Britain, has come out with a song. We won't be able to play that, unfortunately, for copyright reasons, but he's launching his campaign, so it's always great to have him on the show. Welcome to Tim McNally. Hello, Tim.
Good afternoon, Kevin. Thanks for having us. I hope you're well.
I'm OK. Enjoying your tweets, and I'm retweeting them whenever I see them.
Thank you so much. They're really appreciated. Really appreciated.
And we've listened to your song. We can't play it for copyright reasons. We'll play some of the imagery from it. But look, that's brilliant, isn't it? You see what I mean? That's it. That's kind of it. Britain is being invaded, it's being changed, it's being culturally altered, and you're at the forefront of this. I was wondering what you thought about the news today that for 3 months up until June, a migrant, asylum seeker, a foreigner, was granted either citizenship or the permanent right to reside in this country every single minute, one a minute. So the tidal wave that you're trying to stop is engulfing this nation.
I'm absolutely flabbergasted. I don't understand. Can anyone tell me why? Can anyone explain what on earth is going on that can't be stopped, can't be managed? And it's almost like you know, what we're saying, and just so you could share with you in terms of the current site that we're looking at right now, they're saying actually it won't be coming online till maybe next year, you know, middle next year, early next year. So they now changed their position from it coming live in November to now saying, well, it's going to come live next year. So what's the urgency? right? If this site isn't the right site, isn't the right shape, when I say not the right shape, it means the services are not being supported to manage that site properly. They can't get the electric to site at the right quantity, can't get the right amount of water, can't manage the sewage. They should actually start looking at what they're doing as a problem that they're trying to manage out. But more importantly, if you can wait till that time, why don't you just actually manage the flow coming into the country so you haven't got to manage the housing of these people moving forward? It doesn't make sense to me. It genuinely is a conundrum that no one is prepared to answer or even engage in conversation. So one of the things I've been doing is sort of saying, right, okay, MPs, why not make that what I call career-ending discussion and talk about something you're not allowed to talk about because the political mechanism is controlling you.
Yeah, I mean, this is the government today.
And I don't know how we're ever going to fix this problem.
We just lost him, the vagaries of technology there. We'll get him back. What I'm about to put to him is the government today is crowing that the number of asylum seekers in hotels around the country has halved over the past year. So a year ago, June 2025, there were more than 32,000 people in hotel rooms. But by June this year, that was down to 16,000. Are you back with us, Tim? I think he is. Yes.
I am. I'm with you, Kevin.
Oh, good. Yeah.
I'm with you.
I was just saying, right, the government today is crowing that the use of hotels for asylum seekers is dramatically down. In fact, it's halved. So in June 2025, there were 32,000 asylum seekers in hotel rooms around the country. But by June this year, that number had halved to 16,000. So what the government expects us to celebrate is they've found new and interesting ways to accommodate these people. You see, they're not in hotels anymore. We're going to put them in disused RAF bases. We're going to put them in army camps. We're going to put them near villages. You know, I mean, what does that mean? That's just redistribution. It's not solving the crisis or bringing it down. They're playing with numbers, and because they seem to think that we as a nation will go, brilliant, we're not using hotels anymore. That's why you're getting hit in the solar plexus with this awful migrant camp next to you. So this government can say, look, we don't put them in hotels anymore. Big deal.
They're not talking about the problem in an open way. So by dictating their way forward isn't going to help themselves. They're not building the confidence with the communities to be able to actually disengage the problem here. They're actually dictating the process to say, this is how we're going to operate forward, whether you like it or not. And of course, to expect a small village of 350 people to assimilate against 1,250, that is so disproportionate. It should be the other way around. You know, we should be a large enough community to be able to have someone assimilate into our structure, not the other way around. And, you know, we're the ones who have to make the security paradigm shift. We're the ones who have to reshape our lives accordingly. But unless they have that open conversation, the true consultation, real understanding of the problem, instead of actually kicking it down the road to another location, because that's all they're going to do. So if we say no, don't do it here, it's not going to fix the problem. What they've got to do is we've got to look at the problem together. And I sent that letter to Andy Burnham and said, let's have a talk about this right back on his first day of his premiership. But of course, no, he said he'll talk about the good people of Piddington, but never has done it and probably never will.
Yeah, because he doesn't like to talk about the migrant crisis at all. And you are suffering. Your village, Linton-on-News, is it Barnham up in Norfolk as well? All these... Wethersfield, of course. All these villages and communities all over the country are suffering because for some reason Shabana Mahmood and this Labour government got it in their heads that what the people of Britain were furious about was not the fact that all these boats are coming across and thousands of young men of sexually active age are breaking into our country illegally. No, we weren't upset about that, apparently, according to the Labour government. We were upset that they were being accommodated in hotels. Well, we didn't love the fact they were being put in hotels, but it wasn't at the heart of the matter. You know, the fact that they're now saying, well, what we've decided to do, rather than put them in hotels, we're going to ruin rural communities. They expect us to say, oh, well, that's great. You are a victim of this weird idea that Shabana Mahmood had, that what the public really want, they don't want to stop the migrant crisis. They just want to move the migrants out of hotels. That isn't what we want.
I think we just want to basically address our borders and understand, there's no way we can repatriate any of these incumbent guests because there's nowhere to send them. We've lost our right to basically be able to send them anywhere, quite frankly. And we've now got to find something for them to do because, there isn't a vacuum of employment that they fill, sadly. They're not engineers, doctors and nurses and the like. So we've got to educate them. They're only 37% literate as a structure. So what are they going to be doing? And why are we allowing this to continue when we still, our own children can't get into work? And that should be our primary, is getting our children skilled to a position of being able to contribute to the tax structure, not actually building a broader structure of dependency that we've got to keep funding forever and ever and ever. Because that's what it feels like. From my point of view, my tax is just getting squeezed at every possible point, and I can't find a way of improving my quality of life. But yet others are plenty, they're living off me quite comfortably. And I find that quite offensive.
Yeah, well, I don't have any cause to complain about tax and the government overtaxing people, Tim, because the government very kindly allows me to keep 50% of my income. Isn't that great? It's fantastic,
nice.
Isn't it? It really is nice. Well, listen, so I'm off for a couple of weeks, but I'll follow your tweets and good luck with everything you do. And
thank you, Kevin.
You've always got a place on this show. Tim, it's fantastic to talk to you. Thank you so much. Tim McNally, their chair of Piddington Council, founder of the Village That Roared campaign. They're not going to take it. They're mad as hell, and they're not going to take this anymore. The government aren't going to get away with this. How dare they do this? How dare they ruin Piddington? How dare they ruin Linton-on-Ouse? How dare they? They've already ruined Crowborough. It's just disgusting, isn't it? Let me know what you think. 0344 499 1000. Hey, Burnham, never mind about Freddo's chocolate bars or cowboy builders or bus fares. Stop the bloody boats. Stop them. Do something. Talk about it. For God's sake. Let's go to break. We're going to talk about two-tier policing and the way they handle suspects when they're looking for suspects or looking for witnesses. They always seem to tell us suspect was a white man in his 20s, well-built, 6 foot tall. And then when you hear we're looking for a suspect, he's a man, we think he's from Staffordshire or something like that. I mean, why are they, when they don't say white, you suspect, well, I think pretty much no. It means that the suspect is not white. So why do they tell us when the suspect is white, but they don't tell us when the suspect is not white? It's woke policing, isn't it? It's wokery. It's ridiculous. Two-tier woke policing. Unbelievable. How does that help solving serious crimes? The one we're going to talk about is a rape, for God's sake, and they're playing wokery. They're hampering their own investigation by not revealing details of the suspect as they appeal for witnesses. I mean, I'm laughing, but this is horrific. We'll talk about this next. Stay tuned.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, let's go straight over to my guest. We're going to talk about what I would suggest is woke policing, two-tier policing, in terms of the way they appeal for witnesses to terrible crimes. It seems that if the suspect or if the suspect is suspected to be white, they'll tell you, we're looking for a white man in his 20s, a heavy build, wearing an anorak. But then in other cases, they'll go, we're looking for a man, you know, looking for a man well built in their 20s, you know, etc., or believed to be from Staffordshire, this sort of thing, where there's no colour, no kind of ethnic description. And I think you can pretty much rest assured that that's because it's a person of colour. So why do they tell us when a suspect is white, when they're looking for witnesses, but if a suspect isn't white, they don't tell us? This is, in my view, mad woke policing to the detriment of solving serious crimes. We're talking here about rape. Rape in two circumstances. Let's go to my next guest. He's the Reform UK Police and Crime Commissioner for Leicester, Rupert Matthews. Welcome, Rupert.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Now, this is the story of two horrific rapes. Now, on Wednesday, a 13-year-old girl was sexually assaulted on a West Midlands, on a train in West Midlands. She was attacked while travelling between Coventry and Wolverhampton. We're told, as it was passing through Solihull via Birmingham International Station, we're told that she went to the loo and a guy apparently forced himself into the loo and raped her, 13 years old. The transport police, British Transport Police, have a suspect, but obviously they want witnesses. Did you see what happened on the train? So they said, we're looking for witnesses to this. Did you see what happened on the train? You know, we're looking for a man, they basically said. Now, meanwhile, there was a woman in her 20s was raped on August the 22nd, walking through Covent Garden in the middle of London in the early hours. And she was allegedly raped after being dragged into a doorway in a packed London tourist hotspot. Now, the police there have said, you know, we're looking for witnesses. It's a white man believed to be aged between 25 and 35 in connection with this horror, right? So do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, if the British Transport Police are now saying, well, you know, we've got a suspect already, but that's not the point. Just because you've got a suspect, you've arrested them, that you need witnesses. They put out an appeal for witness. They know what this guy looks like, but they're not telling us his ethnic origin. Is he a man of colour or is he white? But when it's a white suspect, as in the Covent Garden case, the police, this isn't the British Transport Police, of course, but to be fair, they immediately say it's a white man, you know, we're looking for a white man. I think this is two-tier woke policing, and if a suspect for a serious crime like rape happens to be of ethnic origin, a person of colour, the police, it seems to me, are reticent to say so. Classic two-tier police wokery to the detriment of solving a very serious crime. They've got their priorities all wrong, haven't they?
Well, to be fair to the police, and I always try to be fair to the police because there is a lot to criticise, most of the time they go on what I would term strictly policey matters. So if you've got a good quality photo, a good quality description, you don't know who the guy is, that tends to get released because they want to identify who is this person that we're looking for. But sometimes they got a good quality description or a good quality photo, but they do actually know exactly who that guy is. And in that instance, they won't release a description because they don't want the suspect to know he's been identified. What they want is for him to go down the red line on Friday night like he always does, and then they're there to arrest him. But where the police go wrong, as so often, is when they try to play politics with the situation. And very often the police err on the side of caution.
Well, wait a second, though, Ruben. In the case of the British Transport Police here, they've got the suspect, they've got him, but they're looking for witnesses, and so they say we're looking for witnesses, you know. So, but they haven't said what the guy looks like. They haven't said what the guy looks like.
Yeah, absolutely right. And as I say, you know, when the police
they know what he looks like. He's sitting in a cell in the police station. You know,
exactly.
why won't they tell us what he looks like? If you want witnesses, tell us what he looks like.
Yeah, and as you're alluding to, well, they're very worried about the impact of what they say. So, you know, go off a different course. You've got all this trouble going on in Middlesbrough, and a lot of the people involved in that come from a certain community, but the police won't say that because they're very cautious about identifying groups or ethnicities or
they're worried about
charges.
They're worried about charges of racism or Islamophobia or prejudice towards the travelling community.
Yeah.
Well, they've got to stop doing this. This is about solving crimes. We're not interested in the police's virtue signalling wokery. This is ridiculous.
Okay, so
do you know what the British Transport Police? Do you know what they have said about this suspect, who they know? We want witnesses. They know what he looks like. They've got him. Do you know what they've said to help get witnesses? He's from Staffordshire.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
But I mean, you've got two things going on here. First of all, and you've alluded to both of them, actually. First of all, the police are frightened of being accused of being racist. They're frightened of being accused of being hostile to one particular community or one particular ethnicity. That all comes from the Stephen Lawrence inquiry. And they have been saddled with this to such an extent that senior police officers now automatically go into, you know, don't say anything mode, which is why you get these two-tier decisions. The other side of it, of course, is that a lot of police officers actually have now been trained in this. And, you know, the old-time copper who might be a retired sergeant from the army, they're not there anymore. And the numbers of police officers coming from the army has dropped because of the entrance requirements. And you're no longer getting coppers with common sense because they're not the ones that are being recruited. Overwhelmingly, new police recruits are very young. They're trained into the job. And as we have seen so often, elements of that training really aren't very helpful. They're told about community cohesion. They're told they mustn't be racist. And so they're constantly looking over their shoulders. And we saw this, I think, most graphically with the Henry Novak case, that tragic case of the guy in Southampton that was stabbed and the police didn't believe him. Because they're constantly looking over their shoulders. We mustn't do something that might be perceived as racist. We mustn't do something which might cause problems with community cohesion. And so, of course, you know, even when they've got a suspect and they know who he is and so on, they're very reluctant to identify what ethnicity. Unless
they're white, they're happy to tell us if someone's white.
Well, that's right.
But Rupert, this is wrong. This is just wrong.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. But what they're trying to do is they look at it and they say, oh, so this guy, let's say this guy is a Hindu, or he's from the traveller community or whatever. Well, if it's about the third or fourth serious crime that someone from that community has committed in a short space of time, the police are going to worry, oh, that's going to lead to a backlash. We better not say anything. And so they don't. And you've got the two things going on. First of all, you've got, as you alluded to, the wokery amongst some police officers, but you've also got the community cohesion element, which is much more prevalent in policing. They're worried about what the white population is going to do. And they do not want to sort of give an excuse for what happened in the wake of the Southport killings, for instance. They don't want that to happen. Understandably, people got hurt and so on, but they're terrified of being blamed for it themselves. And so they won't issue statements where they should be issuing statements. And as you've said, what this can do in extremis is it actually hampers the investigation that they're trying to carry out, because they're asking for witnesses, but they're not giving them the information they should do for the witnesses.
Rupert, it's just wrong. You know, these police should stop worrying about whether or not anybody says they're racist. They should stop worrying about wokery, catch the bad guys and solve the crimes. Don't worry about anything.
That is exactly right. The police should be there to arrest malefactors, gather the evidence, and prosecute them. They keep trying to play politics. This is something drives me mad.
Yeah.
They always talk about we mustn't politicise the police, we mustn't politicise the police, and then they politicise themselves.
Yeah,
they're doing it themselves.
Exactly right. Exactly right, Rupert. Rupert, thanks very much for coming on. Good to talk to you. Rupert Matthews there, Reform UK Police and Crime Commissioner for Leicester. British Transport Police sent us this statement. It's quite long. We issue many appeals where we send out the suspect's image when we're trying to identify them, and as in this case, some where we have already arrested a person, therefore don't need to release their image, but are encouraging witnesses to come forward. Eh? OK, then. You'll notice that the level of detail is consistent with our other appeals and standard operating procedure, whereby we can provide age and location of someone arrested. It may also be of note that when we've already made an arrest and are looking for witnesses, we may sometimes leave certain details out, such as specifics of what a person might look like, OK, or things that were said or done in the incident, in order to ensure we receive more independent witnesses' statements, which therefore provide us with a better chance of prosecution. OK, then, that's what they say. OK, let's go to a break. Next up, we'll talk to Mike Anstead, Sport Head of Content at The Sun, about all the big sport of the weekend. It's going to be another big week of Premiership football. That next, stay tuned.
Darren Jones.
Nigel Farage, I want to give credit here. I don't agree with a lot of Reform's policies, particularly on the economy, which don't add up. They would add heavily to the debt, which I think is a big danger for the country. But on this, I want to pay him a huge amount of credit. Let me tell you, I went to Calais and spoke to a lot of people, African men mainly, living in a warehouse. And I said, if you knew you were going to be instantly deported, would you come? I said, we're not going to spend 5,000 to a people smuggler to know that we're going to end up back in Africa. Of course they're not. That is that smashes the business model of the game.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Sport head of content from the Sun newspaper, Mike Anstead, is in the studio. Welcome, Mike. Tonight, Crystal Palace, Man City, live on TalkSport, by the way, from 8 p.m. Your thoughts?
It's going to be an interesting game, this one. I mean, start with Palace. They are the home team. They're really rocked by how many players they've kind of lost over past 6 months.
Took a Tonkin last week as well, didn't
yeah,
they,
exactly. Look difficult. I mean, their defence, if you think 6 months ago they had Mark Gay, England's international there, and Maxime Lacroix, who's now at Chelsea. So they look a bit weak defensively. They've obviously got doubts over Mateta, doubts over Sarr, a little bit doubt over Wharton. Munoz looks like he might be going to Nottingham Forest. They're getting ravaged like a lot of these middling teams do. And then at the side, you've got Man City, who were struggled against Bournemouth, but ultimately got over the line. Maresca's sort of piecing it together. We think there's probably a couple of other big names still to come in there. So he's definitely a work in progress. And Erling Haaland, who's now cut off all his hair... hasn't scored yet, but only one Prem game.
Is he the Samson of football?
Well,
I was talking to Sean.
You know what? I did look at it and think that would be a good storyline, but I feel like we've maybe got to let it evolve for a few weeks with Erling Haaland. The moment you start questioning him, he'll go and score 2 goals. So I expect City probably will win, but it's not an easy place to go.
Has he talked about the haircut?
No, he did. Well, he did a social media video, as they all do these days, a nice YouTube video. But I think whether he starts regretting it, let's see. Let's give him a few games.
Oh, I'm expecting to see that in the Sun, that ASAP, Why I Cut My Hair by Erling Haaland.
Absolutely.
It's a good story, seriously. Man City are trying to buy someone from Everton, meanwhile?
Yeah, so Man City, we know they've been looking at Cody Gakpo. He wants another wide man in Maresca, but he's now made Iliman Ndiaye, who is the Everton number 10, who's caught the eye last couple of seasons, looks very good. So he's looking at him. There's about 80 million asking price from Everton. That's the top target. Look, City have got till late on Tuesday night to do this when the deadline closes. If you're Ndiaye, it's probably a straightforward decision to make if they meet the asking price, and then he's in there. You wouldn't blame him for going to City, and that would open the door to Gakpo potentially going to Spurs, because they're still very much interested in him. So there's quite a lot of deals. Big deals up in the air.
Still in the offing.
Yeah, I mean, Bradley Barcola's set to join Liverpool. That could be announced fairly soon. Enzo Fernandez, arguably the biggest one. So Chelsea to Man City again. So, Man City essentially could be spending the best part of 200 million over the next few days.
Enzo Fernandez has actually changed his name to Enzo Fernandez. Boo! Every time he gets the ball.
Exactly, yeah. Whether he's going to be any more welcome there than he is at Chelsea,
we had him at Fulham on Monday night, and every time he got the ball, as I said, I told Sean Custis the other day that the most family-friendly chant I can give you is Enzo Fernandez, the Falklands are ours.
There we go.
That was the nicest. Some of them were really over the top.
Which presumably is a chant you can just apply to any Argentinian player.
Yeah, well, of course, it's interchangeable. That's the beauty of it.
And Chelsea are helping everyone with this by Fernandez going and then signing Emi Martinez from Aston Villa. So they're replacing one Argentinian with another. So, but long and short of this, there's a lot of big deals going on between now and Tuesday night. Obviously, what happens with the transfer window, we suddenly get into the weekend where we are now. Everyone starts playing live football, so almost a lot of it gets put on hold, and then we get to Monday, which is a bank holiday, but no one really ever stops in football, and you'll probably have a 8-hour blitz of transfers going on.
Very quickly, I would say the interesting games tomorrow. Coventry, Hull City, as we just said off air, that's probably a 6-pointer. And Tottenham Hotspur, Newcastle, those are the two interesting ones.
Yeah, I mean, Spurs, Newcastle, the late game is obviously Sandro Tonali at centre, that £100 million midfielder who left Newcastle for Spurs. Spurs aren't in Europe, so that was quite an interesting one. We knew Arsenal and City were looking at him. I mean, Coventry's great, isn't it? Because they've not had a home Premier League game since Highfield Road 2001. It was 0-0 against Bradford, had already been relegated.
Was it?
So yeah. We were struggling to find photos of it downstairs. We had to dip into the library, but I mean, it was called the Premiership back then. It really was called the Premiership.
Yeah,
that's
right,
how long
yeah.
ago it was. So,
Wow.
but that would be a great scene. Look, fair play to Lampard and Coventry. It's been a long old journey getting back there, so they should have a fun day out. It's too harsh from you, Kev, calling that 6-pointer. Look, it's still August. Let them enjoy themselves for a few.
Well, Fulham
few
have got a
weeks.
6-pointer, I'd say, on Sunday when we play Sunderland. So all these teams, as we just said, have got to go now. But for the teams of Fulham, Sunderland, Coventry, Hull, it's about beating the teams you've got to beat. You know, we got beaten by Chelsea. I wasn't happy, but, you know, we can live with that, but we can't live with losing to Hull. And that's the same for all the bottom teams. Mike Hampstead, great stuff. Stay we are, back in a moment with all the big stories.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Don't forget, get yourself onto your phones and phone in 03444991000. We have lots to talk about. Let me know what you think about Andy Burnham. Don't you think it's about time he got down to business? Stop droning on about bus fares, cowboy builders, the price of chocolate bars. What about World War III? What about our £3 trillion national debt? What about stopping the boats? I mean, Andy, stop talking about the price of chocolate bars. It's unbelievable. Let me know what you think about that. Middlesbrough, what are your thoughts there? Is this the beginning of the end? Is this a breakdown of society? It's looking like it. Everybody expects there to be more Middlesbroughs. This could be the unravelling that we've been worried about, that communities all over the country, stripped of hope, stripped of jobs, stripped of prospects, are just falling into disrepair and social disrepair. And, you know, Middlesbrough has erupted. We fear there may be more communities. People say there are many more communities across the north. We've got more Middlesbroughs to come. What are your thoughts about that? 03444991000. Our Reform UK right to ban people who can't speak English from voting. Seems like a no-brainer, doesn't it? And what do you think about Kemi Badenoch saying that she will deport every illegal immigrant because our country is our home, not our hotel? She's exactly right there. The only trouble is it would be our home and not a hotel for illegal migrants if it wasn't for Kemi's party, the Tories. They gave us this mess. They gave us this chaos. They gave us this cultural catastrophe, the migrant crisis. The Tories, 14 years. Labour's made it worse, but it isn't Labour's fault. You know, remember that. So let me know what you think about that. 03444991000. Let's go over to my next guest. By the way, in about 20, 25 minutes, we're going to talk about the BBC because it's a former major news star, Amol Rajan, who was on pretty much every show. He's quit to try his luck as a kind of media independent mogul. He says that unless the BBC gets rid of the licence fee, and I'm quoting him, it is screwed. I think he's right. I think it's screwed already. What do you think? 03444991000. That next, but first, let's talk to political commentator Benedict Spence. Hi, Benedict.
Good afternoon, Kevin. How are you?
I'm all right. Well, first of all, I believe something very exciting is happening on Monday evening at 7 p.m. Fill us in with the details, will you?
Oh, well, I mean, for a start, it's a bank holiday, so I would expect
come on, get to the chase.
everybody and their point to not be listening to talk because you have better things to do. But if you are around, there is the off chance that you might hear my dulcet tones filling in for a couple of hours on Monday evening from 7 o'clock. So if you are a masochist and not much else to do, by all means, please tune in and I shall be there. I'd be very grateful if you'd give me feedback about how bad a job I'm doing.
Yeah, so seriously, folks, Benedict is hosting the Evening Exchange on Monday. Peter Caldwell's got the week off and Benedict will take over the Good Ship Evening Exchange on Monday night, 7 p.m. Don't miss it. I can guarantee you it's going to be one blockbuster of a show. Benedict, let's talk about this Prime Minister of ours. I mean, this deflection technique he seems to have developed has turned into a kind of obsession with him, almost a sickness. You know, we are being engulfed by the most appalling crises. You know, abroad, you know, Putin looks set to invade Poland. God knows what's going to happen then. So we're on the edge potentially of World War III. We have a £3 trillion national debt that costs us £3,500 every second, not to pay back, just to service. We have a £350 billion a year welfare budget bill that is literally wrecking our economy. Net zero is wrecking our economy. The migrant crisis gets worse by the day. And today the Prime Minister says he wants to tackle the scourge of cowboy builders. Well, cowboy builders are awful and we all do agree that they're not at all nice and something should be done about them. But is that his priority? No. He's not just talking about cowboy builders. You know, I'm doing him wrong. He talked about another very important issue today. That's the price of Freddo chocolate bars, which he thinks is way too high. But at least he's taking a rare break from talking about bus fares. This deflection of his is becoming ridiculous.
It is becoming ridiculous because, you know, we all understood in the first couple of weeks, maybe, when he was trying to sort of reset the agenda and trying to talk up things to give the impression that he's an ordinary guy and he understands what the ordinary man is going through. Fair enough. You were trying to do things slightly differently to Keir Starmer, who literally just came in and said, everything's worse and I'm about to make that situation even worse. But we are some time into his premiership now, over a month. There has yet to be any sort of major strategic change of direction. There's no sort of major policy announcements to deal with these big ticket issues. I mean, you're right also to say things like cowboy builders, things like fly tippers. Yes, these are issues that are important. They do affect people. They do make people's lives a misery. But A, they're downstream of major policy decisions, and B, they are beneath the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister should be dealing with the root causes of decay in society that ends up causing these things, not going around the country on a weird sort of grand tour, looking at these things and going, oh, isn't it terrible? But don't worry, I'm listening. That's not what a prime minister's for, ultimately. You know, as you said, we're talking about war in Europe. We're talking about major energy crises. Where are the ideas on that? Actually, that's what you want a prime minister to be doing.
Yeah, and also be suspicious of politicians when they suddenly seize upon some issue that no one had thought about. And everybody, you know, with cowboy builders, everybody goes, yeah, they are, yeah, we should do something about them. You know, that's what they're banking on. Oh, yes, the Prime Minister's come up with something there. He's only doing it to deflect from the issues he can't really deal with. I remember Jack Straw, when he was Home Secretary, declaring war on dog walkers. You know, people who, you know, get paid to take dogs for a walk. He said, they sometimes got 20 dogs and they're not in control and all that sort of thing. I remember Grant Shapps declaring war on unnecessary announcements at stations and airports. It's an age-old technique, but the Prime Minister should not be indulging on that. He's got some serious stuff to talk about, and it's pretty worrying that he seems to refuse to do that. Let's move on. What do you make of Kemi Badenoch's declaration today that she will deport every illegal immigrant in this country because this is our country is our home, not a hotel, as I keep saying. Well, she's absolutely right about that, but the reason our country has become a hotel for illegal migrants, for people who break into this country illegally, is because of her party. She seems to forget that.
Well, that's exactly the thing that I would say. First and foremost, it's lovely to hear that she would do this, but why was this not, in fact, the policy? And the problem with this is, even if what Kemi Badenoch is saying is, don't worry, guys, I'm different, I'm a change of pace, I'm going to do things differently to how they were done in the past. The overarching issue with the Conservative Party is that nobody trusts it. Now, people might like Kemi Badenoch, they might like what she says, they might like the direction she's going in, they might even consider voting for her. The problem is, because she is the leader of the Conservative Party, and the Conservative Party continues always, whenever it's in power, to go through the same sort of power struggles and, you know, defenestrations of leaders, people simply don't trust that if you vote for Kemi Badenoch, you'll end up with Kemi Badenoch. They think it could be absolutely anybody. And another large part of the problem with the average Tory MP is people don't believe that they're Conservative. So even if a Tory MP comes out and says these hardline things, nobody actually thinks for a second that they're going to stick to it. The second that they get in power, they'll become liberals again. They'll revert to type. Ultimately, this is what she has to face. The public do not trust the Conservative Party, and she is a long way, I think, from being electable, no matter what she says, because that residual distrust of people bearing blue rosettes is still very strong up and down the country.
Yeah, absolutely right. Let's talk about the migrant crisis. The sheer magnitude of it has become depressingly evident today because it's been revealed. I mean, I want to ask you here, Benedict, what the hell is going on? It's been revealed that for the 3 months up until June, 140,122 foreigners, migrants, asylum seekers, were either granted permanent residency, permanent settlement in Britain, or British citizenship. That's 140,000 in 3 months. That's the equivalent of one migrant being allowed to stay, being a citizen or a permanent resident every 60 seconds. One migrant every minute was allowed to stay in the country for the 3 months up until June. We then learn that for the year up until June, 245,520 people became British citizens, and a record 315,224 more applied for citizenship. This is a tidal wave, and the only thing that the Home Office had to say about this is, well, we estimate that between 1.3 million and 2.2 million foreigners could settle here between 2026 and 2030. Is this because Labour feel that all these illegal migrants that we give citizenship to will vote Labour? Is that what's going on here? Because how else can we explain the sheer magnitude of these numbers? This country is full, and yet we are giving hundreds of thousands of foreigners, many of whom broke into this country illegally, citizenship every year. What's going on?
Yeah, on the subject of the asylum seekers getting permanent status, getting asylum status, getting allowed to stay here indefinitely, that, I'm afraid, is what it means when the government says that they are clearing a backlog. What that means is they are simply fast-tracking people. They have no interest in trying to return them to their home countries and trying to remove them because they say that that is immoral and also difficult. So whenever you hear the government saying we're committed to clearing the backlog, what that means is rubber stamping their applications to let them stay as fast as they possibly can. On the subject also of people who are settling for applying for British citizenship, I'm afraid actually there is an awful lot of that, of what you just suggested, which is the feeling is that these people will end up voting Labour because they'll be more inclined to do it so that way. But again, it's also part of the hollowing out of what it means to be British. In a country where we've been now told for a very long time, well, what is British culture? It just means tolerance and diversity. Actually, the meaning of British citizenship evaporates, and you can then fast-track those people in as well, because what are the hoops they have to jump through? They're actually getting less and less. There's no semblance of shared identity or community or values or even language. It's simply, would you like to be British? Would you like all that that entails? Great, as long as you jump through the hoops, you can. And we're not actually going to try and get you to, assimilate or anything like that. That's by the by, and it's a little bit gauche, a little bit right wing. We don't like it. And I'm afraid, as I say, this is then when you get into the sort of the weeds of the conversations with certain people who are liberals or on the left, and you then talk about the amount of money that a lot of these people end up taking from the state in terms of benefits and services, and they say, but they're British citizens, are they not entitled to it? And a lot of people then turn around and go, yes, but just because they're British citizens doesn't mean that they came through a process that you and I, Kev, would recognise as being stringent enough to determine who is actually British.
Absolutely. Well, in terms of, if you like, the battle for Britain, the cultural invasion of this country, and I think the social fabric of this country, something is going on in Middlesbrough. This is not just some kind of low-life gang warfare. The social fabric there is falling apart. There's not enough coppers there. Obviously, you have a complete younger generation there who have no respect for any authority whatsoever. I mean, not only do they like to charge down major roads the wrong way, they film themselves doing so and then put it on TikTok, of course, with terrible, tragic results. And ever since then, that town, Middlesbrough, has erupted. There's been fire bombings of houses, houses rammed, a load of cars set fire last night, 1,000 coppers there trying to maintain some kind of order. Now, there are peculiar local factors to be taken on board about Middlesbrough. It is the crime capital of Britain. You don't confuse that with the Sopranos or anything. This is disorganised crime, not organised crime. But the fear is that this is the beginning. That there will be more Middlesbroughs. These are places without hope, without prospect, poverty-ridden, no jobs, kids with nothing to do. There are many Middlesbroughs around the country, and the fear is we may see more social mayhem in the weeks and months to come.
Yeah, I mean, this actually ties into a lot of things. I mean, first and foremost, you're never going to break generations of poverty through deindustrialization, which is what these parts of the country have gone through, and failing to replace the jobs that existed with other jobs that instill a sense of purpose, value, and community. If you accompany that by the hollowing out of the British education system, which, to be clear, whenever anybody thinks, I thought it was a lot harder in my day when I was at school, you're right. Actually, standards are a lot lower, which makes it far harder for a lot of people from deprived areas in deprived schools to ever get on in life. Combine those two things and you are going to get very depressed areas. Add to that the question of mass migration, which suppresses wages even for those who can get those positions, but also creates this thing that we've been told is called multiculturalism, which is not everybody living side by side and intermarrying and celebrating each other's holidays. It means balkanization. It means siloing of communities. That's then when you get to a situation a bit like what you have in Middlesbrough, where you have, and it's not just Middlesbrough. Everybody knows about places like Bradford and Birmingham and Oldham and different communities that live parallel to each other and don't intermingle at all and are actively hostile because they run themselves along ethnic lines. But actually, what was very interesting there is that you said this isn't like The Sopranos in terms of crime. Increasingly, there is a lot of that, though, actually. When we're talking about gangs of people being, people trafficked into the country, the gangs that Keir Starmer told us he was going to smash, that's the mafia. Now, they might be Albanians, they might be Kurds, but they operate on the exact same principles as that. And when you look at things like grooming gang networks in the UK, in many ways they operate along similar lines to Cosa Nostra, to organised crime. So this idea, actually, that it is largely disorganised, actually the absence of the power of the British state, the stepping back of the police, and the allowing in of these communities to operate almost with exemptions because you don't want to stir up issues, you don't want to be accused of racism, you don't want to over-police, that has allowed this sort of thing to creep in. And as you say, if it continues to just go on unchecked, people will continue effectively to live and run their communities separate to the British state, and more of this sort of thing will keep on happening.
Right, well said, Benedict. This just in, I want to get your take on this. Every day, like most journalists, I religiously check the government's small boat arrivals list over the last 7 days. And to be fair, I mean, this time last year, you could guarantee every single day there'll be minimum 50, often 500, sometimes even more. Now, to be fair, since that huge boat turned up with, what was it, 230 on board about a week and a half ago, it's been pretty inactive on the channel. So I've just checked. Guess how many came across yesterday? Well, the government tells us our strategy is working. We're stopping the boats. We're bringing down the number of asylum seekers in hotels, giving us all this mood music. We're doing it. We're solving the migrant crisis. Guess how many came across yesterday? This has just dropped. 494.
I was going to say 420.
Yeah, 494 in 7 boats. So, it's back on. I mean, it's so frustrating that today the government made this big thing. They said, we have halved the number of asylum seekers being put up in hotels over the last year. This time a year ago, it was 32,000. It's now 16,000. Yeah, and where have you put them? Houses of multiple occupation. You put them in great big camps in places like Crowborough. You've just redistributed them. That's not solving the crisis, and nor, clearly, are you stopping the damn boats. We are being gaslit on an industrial scale by this government, aren't we?
I mean, we really are. It's lying, it's manipulation, and it goes back to what we were talking about at the start. Also, the fast tracking of people, giving them indefinite leave to remain, giving them asylum, giving them British citizenship. They then turn around and go, oh, but look, there aren't as many foreigners as there were, or the numbers are coming down. And then, of course, there's the other thing, which is people fleeing the country, people leaving, people emigrating because of the burden of taxation in this country, that the government then used to say, well, look, net migration is actually lower than it was. And you're all sat there going, but hang on, where's the money going to come from for taxation? Because you're forcing everybody with anything worthwhile to leave. It is just one attempt at spin after another. Why should we be surprised by that? That's, of course, famously what Labour really enjoyed with back in the days of Alistair Campbell. That was spin. What the difference is, I suppose, with this particular government is they're not as good as that.
They're not very good, but they still try. Listen, Benedict, great to talk to you, and very good luck on Monday. I might even tune in from Greece. That's Benedict Spence, political commentator, as I just said. Right? So, let's get this straight. Only today the government boasted we've halved the number of asylum seekers living in hotels. This time last year it was 32,000. Now this June, only 16,000. Big deal. What does that mean? You've moved them to other places. You've redistributed them to houses of multiple occupation, to army camps, to disused RAF camps. Well, big deal. We don't care about that. And also, as Andy Burnham says, our strategy, we are stopping the boats. They are coming down. Yes, it's all working. Well, yesterday, folks, 494 migrants crossed the channel illegally in unlawful boats, doubtless to be welcomed into the warm embrace of this ridiculous country, where we will now give them, all 494 will receive £50 a week benefits, free doctors, free dentists, free lawyers, free driving lessons, free accommodation, free food. It carries on, folks, and still they come, and still the government, frankly, just lies to us about this. It's not on, is it? It's not on. It's got to stop. Stop the damn boats. Let's go to break. When we come back, I'm going to talk about the BBC. Amol Rajan, their big news star who's quit to go it alone. I think you can see the writing on the wall. Guy was earning a fortune there, but he's gone off to try his luck on his own. He said he wants to release his inner media mogul. He's a very clever guy, by the way. He says if the BBC sticks to its licence fee, if it won't ditch the licence fee, the anachronistic licence fee, 180 quid or so that we're forced every year to pay by law, he said, if they don't get rid of that, he said, and I'm quoting him, the BBC is screwed. It's screwed. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
Nigel Farage, I want to give credit here. I don't agree with a lot of Reform's policies, particularly on the economy, which don't add up. They would add heavily to the debt, which I think is a big danger for the country. But on this, I want to pay him a huge amount of credit. Let me tell you, I went to Calais and spoke to a lot of people, African men mainly, living in a warehouse. And I said, if you knew you were going to be instantly deported, would you come? They said, we're not going to spend 5,000 to a people smuggler to know that we're going to end up back in Africa. Of course they're not. That is that smashes the business model of the game.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I should make a very sad announcement. I'm sure you're all going to go into a long period of grieving, but as of I'm off after today, a well-deserved break. I haven't had one for days. No, I've had a holiday for a long time, so I'll be off for 2 weeks, and Peter Cardwell will be keeping the good ship drive time going, so he'll be presenting Drive for the next 2 weeks. I hope you don't miss me too much and don't go out celebrating now, all right? Now, let's move on to the next story. Amol Rajan, not so long ago, he could barely turn on the BBC, be it radio or telly, and he was presenting something. You know, he was on the Today programme, doing University Challenge, you name it. He was presenting it. They loved him at the BBC, and he was earning a fortune, you know, somewhere around about £400,000. But he quit suddenly, and I think he saw well, maybe not suddenly, but he quit. I think he saw the writing on the wall. He's a very bright guy. He said he wants to start his own media company. He said he wanted to release his own inner media mogul. Don't forget, this guy used to be an editor of The Independent, so he's a polymath when it comes to the media. Anyway, he now says that if the BBC, the state broadcaster, does not ditch its beloved licence fee, you know, that grotesque fee that we're made to pay by law, 180 quid a year. He said if they don't get rid of that, and I'm quoting, he said if the BBC doesn't get rid of the licence fee, it's screwed. I think it might be screwed already, but he's certainly right. Let's talk to Head of Campaigns at Popular Conservatism, Andrew Allison. I think Amol has hit the nail on the head. The BBC clings on to the licence fee for dear life. Yeah. It's the only thing it sees as its the key to its survival. I don't think it's right. I think the licence fee is incredibly anachronistic. The whole system of broadcasting and how people can watch television or listen to the radio has completely changed since it came in, beyond recognition in the last couple of years. So it's anachronistic. It should be historical, but they've still got it and they're hanging on to it. Amol Rajan says if they carry on with this licence fee, they are screwed. I think he's right.
I think he's right as well. I've been saying for over 10 years now that the BBC is clinging on to an analogue funding system in a digital world. I could see the writing on the wall 10 plus years ago. I think that the iPlayer was first launched in about 2006, 2007. Kevin, maybe it was later than that. I can't remember exactly. But surely then it must have realised that everything is going to be moving online, everything's going to be going to digital, and more people are going to be watching things when they want to watch them on a whole range, a whole plethora of different platforms. It was obvious then. And since then, it has just got worse. And also, he said in that lecture, as it was reported in the newspapers, the governments have failed the BBC, that they should have reformed the licence fee or abolished it, changed it into something else. But the BBC has never said that it wants rid of the licence fee. Indeed, it keeps on saying it's only because of the unique way in which we are funded that we can provide you all these wonderful shows, all this wonderful entertainment. And they even did that in that awful video that they put on through the World Cup final, didn't they, Kev?
Yeah.
So you know, the BBC has wanted this. The BBC has clung onto this. And it's now death by 1,000 cuts, because more and more people are not paying the licence fee, and they're doing it legally as well. It's not as if they're trying to watch lots of live television and not pay the licence fee. They're just watching more things on demand.
He says that Amol was talking on the Political Currency podcast, and he said he was leaving the BBC because he wants to go where the action is. And he's right. I mean, the action is not with big media organisations like the BBC anymore, unless they start getting nimble on their feet. As you say, they are operating like a TV channel from the 1970s. You know, things have changed. But he said, trust me, that, you know, so we heard this week that the BBC urgently needs to save £500 million, to wit, to the extent that they might even axe Newsnight, their flagship news programme on the BBC, to save money. But he says, Amol says, mark my words, the situation is a lot worse than you think it is. He said that the BBC is, at this rate, is destined to get smaller at an accelerating rate. All you need to know about the BBC and the mess it's in is I can't think of any other organisation in the world who, operating on this business model, would fail. The business model is, you know, you say this to commercial, you know, private businesses, oh, once a year you will be given £3.5 billion. You will be given £3.5 billion. Do with it what you will. And yet, this organisation is failing. This organisation is struggling economically, financially, even though it gets £3.5 billion a year. I don't know, Andrew, could it be because they have 170, they have hundreds of executives earning six-figure salaries? Could it be that they actually spend most of the money on themselves and not on programmes? It's a mess, that organisation, absolute mess.
Well, it's a complete mess, but of course they're struggling, Kev, because they're used to an even bigger budget than that. And the budget keeps going down each year. And because they're not particularly innovative, I mean, you look at the BBC's back catalogue, it could be making a fortune actively promoting, actively selling those shows around the world. But of course, it doesn't really do that. It's all the rather half-hearted. But I think a smaller BBC is a good thing. The BBC already distorts the media marketplace enough as it is. The BBC should stick to its core purposes. And news is certainly one of them. So the idea that they're going to axe Newsnight and the BBC is not going to have a flagship news programme Monday to Friday in an evening, well, that is simply the BBC abdicating its responsibility. There are so many other areas where it can save money. You've just mentioned it with a high executive salary. It doesn't need as much talent. There's all sorts of areas where the BBC could save money, but axing Newsnight, it should not be one of them.
Well, no, I've always said this, that you know, they talk about axing programmes, you know, making fewer dramas, spending less on programmes, but these fat cats at the BBC continue to sort of divide up the licence fee avalanche of money they get every year between themselves. An obscene number of them earn six-figure salaries, an obscene number. And yet they never do anything about that. As soon as they say, oh, we've got financial trouble, they don't say, well, should we get rid of 10 of these executives who are earning two? They've got 11 HR executives earning an average of £220,000. How about you get rid of 10 of them, or maybe even all of them, and then you can save Newsnight and other programmes. They never talk about themselves as, oh, right, oh, we're in trouble, we better start axing important programmes like Newsnight. No, get rid of 10 of your £220,000 a year HR executives. That would be a good idea, wouldn't it?
It would be a brilliant idea, Kevin. It's exactly what they should do. I mean, in a round of cuts that they made a few years ago, they absolutely hollowed out, as far as I could see, the BBC local services, radio and television. I mean, I personally know a couple of really good presenters on BBC local radio near me who basically lost their jobs. I mean, they were forced out.
Yeah, I've got that. Yeah, 130 executives at the BBC, 130 earn £178,000 a year or more. That's grotesque.
Well, of course it is, but as you said, they will not get rid of those people. They will just
they'll get rid of Newsnight instead.
Yeah. Oh, Newsnight and follow up the local BBC operator. They would rather get rid of somebody or 5 or 6 people who are earning about 25, 30 grand a year, just starting their careers in media, rather than getting rid of those people. Yeah. But the BBC just lives in cloud cuckoo land.
Of course it does. I've got another idea. Stop paying Radio 2 DJs £500,000 a year to spin discs. It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous organisation, and I think it's already screwed. But Amal Rajan is right. They need to think about the licence fee, because it's anachronistic. It's like something out of another time. It's got to stop. It's got to stop. Otherwise, as Amal said, the BBC is screwed. Andrew, great to have you on the show. Have a fantastic weekend. That's Andrew Allison, Head of Campaigns at Popular Conservatives. And for the rest of the show, when we come back, we're going to take your calls. 03444991000. I'll read a few messages as well. I don't know if we're getting any WhatsApp voice notes, but if we have, I'll play them out. All of that's still to come. Stay where you are.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Quick message from Jason in Worthing. He says he's hit the nail squarely on the head. We were talking about Middlesbrough. It's a breakdown of society. We seem intent on importing immigrants for jobs that could be taken by our own citizens. Stop importing the workforce, cut benefits and get them to work. Well, that's a pretty sledgehammer approach. But yeah, basically, I think Jason's got a point. We need to start thinking about all of this. John says about the four people who arson attacked the Jewish ambulances. Arson is a very serious offence, especially with an element of terror involved. In this case, the message needs to be sent: 15 years to life. As I said, I couldn't agree more. We need to throw the book at those four anti-Semites to send the message that if you launch anti-Semitic attacks on the Jewish community, you're going to go inside for a very, very long time. They'll stop doing it then, because what they're expecting is about 2 years out in 6 months. Let's give them a shock, eh? What have we got here? Joanna from Salisbury says, Kemi Badenoch is just word speak. Kemi has a degree in law, an expert in equivocation, using ambiguous language to conceal the truth. Does she think we are that stupid? The question then will be, what is an illegal migrant the second they get picked up? They claim asylum, then constantly appeal and are no longer illegal. Yeah, I mean, Joanna's onto something there. That's what's going on. When, as the Labour government boasts, yeah, numbers are coming down. You know, it's because they are, as we've discussed all show, they are granting permanent residency and citizenship to hundreds of thousands of these illegal and legal migrants in order to say, so once they've given them permanent residency or citizenship, they can say, well, they're no longer asylum seekers. See what I mean? Therefore, the numbers come down, but they haven't really. You know, it looks like we could get 2 million, between 1 and 2.5 million more before 2030. This country's full, folks. It's full. There's no room. 03444991000. Let's go to the phones. Let's talk to John in Wokingham. Hi, John.
Hi, Kev. Great show as usual.
Thank you.
Listening to poor Tim McNally. I phoned him before about Piddington. I feel absolutely sick.
You lived there?
Yes, I lived in there for many, many years, quite close to Piddington. I know it very well, and it's absolutely going to destroy the village and those poor children.
Yeah, 46 children. 350 people live in that village. 46 of them are children. As Tim points out, he said it's going to be bad enough for the adults, but the part it's sort of going to destroy the village anyway. Everyone will live in fear. But those kids are going to have their childhoods ruined.
Yeah, taken away. And Oxfordshire County Council announced the other day they're even going to turn the streetlights off at midnight. So
you know what Oxfordshire County Council are like, John? That's probably so you can't fly Union Jacks or St George Cross flags on them.
Well, it's going to plunge the whole village into darkness for 5 or 6 hours.
I didn't know that. That is absurd. That's absurd.
And you actually beat me to it this afternoon, Kev, because I looked on my tracker. 494 came over in 7 boats yesterday.
That's amazing, isn't it? I just saw it myself. I always check it religiously, but I've got into the habit of not bothering over the last few days because it's been very zero. But not yesterday. 494, and they tell us they've got this crisis under control. No, they haven't. No, they haven't.
Well, it's only been numbers alone because it's been so windy. That's all it is.
Yeah. Honestly, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of migrants, illegal migrants, on the north coast of France right now, waiting for their turn. And the Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, tells us numbers are coming down. We're stopping the boats. No, you're not. You're not. Stop lying. John, great call. Thank you very much. John in Wokingham there, former resident of Piddington, the village that roared. Right, it's time for Tarquin now. Let's go over to Tarquin in London. Hi, Tark.
Kevin, still the best radio
Yeah, that's
show
right.
of all the British radio.
Again, you'll always get on because I know you always start your conversations with
Well, you know, the truth will out, as they say.
Yeah, you can't deny it, can you? You can't deny it. Who am I to disagree with you?
Well, exactly. What I was going to do was just agree with you again, Mr. Owen. What it is that Kemi is a nice person. She is a nice lady, no doubt
agree with
about it.
that, yeah.
A human person. But in terms of her fronting the right part of the uniparty leg, I mean, it's just, do they think that the British people are that stupid that after, you say, after 14 years of plenty of opportunities to get things right, they just completely failed? And it was Osborne and Cameron that started the whole thing with their blinking austerity. They started it, and they obviously never relented, and they got nudged out by a succession of also rams like Theresa May, Bojo, and the other. The fellow, can't even remember his name.
Rishi Sunak.
Rishi Sunak, thank you. I mean, they're just nobodies, these people. And what I don't like about it is that Kemi Badenoch, not her personally, but her husband Hamish, is the employee of a very corrupt bank, a factual thing.
Well, hang on a second. I don't know that. You can't go down that road, Tarquin. Well, I don't know about that, Tarquin. I have to be careful about that sort of thing. But you're right about Kemi Badenoch. I don't know if she's in denial, but the point about her is that she's pretty good. She's doing a good job personally, and that deflects from the truth about the Tory party, that they are on their last legs and people are not forgiving them for the migrant crisis that they so kindly gave this nation. It's their fault. It's their fault, and everybody knows it. So she can scream from the rooftops about deporting every illegal migrant as much as she likes. We'll turn around and say, well, that would be good because every single illegal migrant in this country is pretty much your party's fault, right?
Kemi, you're absolutely right, Kevin. So listen, I'll let you crack on, mate. Thank you, Dave.
Always good to talk to you. Thanks, Tarquin, mate. Cheers. Let's go to break. More calls when we come back.
Nigel Farage, I want to give credit here. I don't agree with a lot of Reform's policies, particularly on the economy, which don't add up. They would add heavily to the debt, which I think is a big danger for the country. But on this, I want to pay him a huge amount of credit. Let me tell you, I went to Calais and spoke to a lot of people, African men mainly, living in a warehouse. And I said, if you knew you were going to be instantly deported, would you come? They said, we're not going to spend 5,000 to a people smuggler to know that we're going to end up back in Africa. Of course they're not. That is that smashes the business model of the game.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Right, it's time to plug myself, my favourite bit of the show, seriously. I've got 2 TV shows out, and the first one you can watch right now if you want, but don't watch it right now. But it's available on YouTube anytime you like. It's Plank of the Week. Here's a little clip.
We have a responsibility to do better on an autistic. Sorry about that.
Why does he have that as his ringtone? Who has a duck quack as a ringtone?
And then also don't pretend it didn't happen.
You've got one. Do you really?
I've got a duck one from my wife. That's it.
Okay, all right, all right.
Howard's the RFK Jr. of UK politics.
I love the junior there, Small.
Well, he's not exactly kind of a spring chicken, is he?
All right.
Okay, here we go.
It's a really funny episode, though, I say so myself. That was Robert Kennedy, RFK, addressing the American nation. His phone goes off. Whack, whack, whack. It's not very sort of statesman-like, is it? It's very strange. But it's a great show. Harry and Meghan loom large, but I'm not going to tell you who the Plank of the Week is. It's a off-field, left field. You'll never guess it. But have a look at it. It's a funny episode. My other show, What Just Happened, is live tonight on Talk, so in a couple of hours' time at 9 p.m. So you can watch it live. If you're watching or you're listening to Talk on the radio, it's very radio-friendly, so don't worry about that. But watch it on telly if you can. So that's 9 o'clock tonight. But as of tomorrow morning, Saturday, at 10 a.m., it is available on YouTube anytime you like. So watch it tonight, watch it tomorrow, keep watching it, get the numbers up here, help me out. Here's a clip. In one day, on the same day, she wrote Jolene, and I will always love you. So that day, I would suggest it earned her almost $1 billion. Astonishing.
God, what did I do today? Have lunch? Yeah.
Went down the pub.
I mean, some of her quotes, it costs a lot of money to look this cheap.
Oh, I love that. That's my favourite.
I'm not offended by all the dumb blonde jokes because I know I'm not dumb and I'm also not a blonde. Fantastic.
Talking about Dolly Parton there, she was the mistress of the one-liner, R.I.P. So that's on at 9 o'clock tonight, or you can watch it tomorrow at 10 a.m. Anytime you like on YouTube. Let's move on. Let's talk to Wayne in Essex. Hi, Wayne.
Hello, Kev. How are you, my friend?
I'm all right, yeah. What would you like to say?
Yeah. I just want, I've been listening to the show, I always do, Kev. You was going,
good man.
Yeah, no worries. You were saying earlier, why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? I mean, we need to look at the bigger thing, what's going on here. I mean, look, Kev, we've got a Labour government in, right? I'm not being disrespectful, but they're full of Fabians, right? They're importing these illegal migrants into our country. They're actually going and collecting them. They're bringing them to our shores, which makes them legal. They're running them in, and then they're becoming citizens. They're getting the right to vote. And, I mean, how can putting 1,250 illegal migrants into Piddington amongst 414 people with 46 children, how can that possibly be right and turn the lights on?
Yeah, I mean, of course, those people, I mean, they might, you're right. I mean, those people, of course, in the Piddington camp, well, it's actually in a place called Bicester, I mean, they won't be citizens, they won't have permanent residency rights, but the fear is, I suppose, that they will get that. And you're right, Wayne, I mean, that's what I kind of speculated. You cannot sort of put your finger on a reason for the government allowing this invasion to continue unless they want to give them the vote in the end.
I think I can put my finger on it, Kev, and I love talk because you allow people to have their opinions.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but I think we've got a tyrannical government, and I think they are attacking the people of this country. They're working on a replacement. I mean, if we ever rejoin the EU, I mean, are all these illegal migrants going to be given service for citizenship, and are they going to end up being military? Are they going to be the EU army in our country? I mean, what's going on, Kev?
I don't think they'll be the EU argument. They're not coming from the EU, are they? Oh, well, they're coming from France, I suppose.
Who's behind it, Kev?
Well, there's either some clever people trying to somehow or other destabilise this country or get a whole load of new voters, or, Wayne, it is just chaos. A chaos of incompetence. It could be what you're saying. I don't know, Wayne. I don't know. All I do know is we should be afraid. We should be very afraid. Wayne, I've got to go because I've got to go. But that's a great call, mate. Thanks for ringing.
Have a good 2 weeks.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. Shall we? Let's listen to a quick voice note. This is from Ian, and it's on Andy Burnham's favourite topic, cowboy builders.
This clown Burnham going on about cowboy builders, for God's sake. What, in fact, they're going to do is get another badge or whatever accreditation that they can subscribe to by paying a fee to the government, obviously, this time round, and they'll get some badge to say they're good builders. That doesn't make a good builder. I mean, you know what they need to do? They need to tighten up on people who own companies, go bankrupt, owing their creditors money, and then start another company. They need to go for the people who did the bounce-back loans that never repaid them, all those fraudulent claims during COVID. That's what they should be looking at, those type of people. I mean, Burnham is just so far out of his depth. He's talking about little things that affect little parts of the economy where the big picture's just totally ignored. What have we become as a country?
I don't want to undermine the horror of cowboy builders, particularly if you're one of the victims. You know, one poor old lady committed suicide over it. So it's a horrible thing. But I don't think we should be talking about this because that's what Andy Burnham wants us to do. We should be talking about World War III. We should be talking about the national debt. We should be talking about stopping the boats, not cowboy builders. Just to reiterate, I'm going to be off after this for 2 weeks. Well-deserved break, so I'll be back in a couple of weeks, but you'll be in the very capable hands of Peter Cardwell. And tonight's evening exchange is in the even more capable hands of Charlie Rowney. How are you doing?
That's very kind. Thank you, Kevin. And a very well-earned break.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I think it is too. What have you got on your show?
We'll be talking to Andy Preston, the former mayor of Middlesbrough.
He's interesting on Middlesbrough.
He's been doing the rounds, and so it'd be really great to get his take on
we
all
had him
things.
on last night. He's got some very interesting things to say about it. Knows the area intimately, of course. Anything else?
There's a bit of an